Happy Friday, Smite fans. You are watching the SPL week number 2, day number 1. We've got some great action lined up for you here today. Dolson and Mifflin, we're hanging out together all day today. We're starting on the desk. We're casting later on for what should be a great start to this week in the SPL.
I mean, I can't wait for it, man. Even with the schedule change, we get to cast the Leviathans later because it is Oni Warriors versus the Valkyries up for the first set. I'm pretty pumped for it, bro. I'm really excited.
Yeah, fantastic matchups all weekend long. Mifflin alluded to it. Warriors versus Valkyries start us off here today. Leviathans, Titans will finish off the day a little bit later on. Warriors doubleheader this weekend, going up against the Solar Scarabs. Fans voting with the Scarabs, casters voting with the Warriors, so a little intrigue surrounding that one. Then the league favorite and the Jade Dragons back in action against the ever-growing Tartarus Titans to end the day on Saturday. Bolts Valkyrie start us off on Sunday. Leviathans, Kings to end this weekend. So, a fantastic way to end the weekend, but a great way to start the weekend as well. Let's see where these teams shake out. As of right now, a couple teams have played a couple games, but 4 of the teams have only played 1 game. We'll remedy that after this weekend. Dragons up top, Leviathans chasing that first place spot with a win here later on today. Camelot Kings 1-1. Remember, they've played up against the Dragons, though, so that 1-1 split, they've already played maybe the hardest team to go up against here in this league. Lots of growing, lots of moving, lots of shaking to do here. Mifflin, all of these teams look competitive. God knows what's going to happen in any of these matchups. So let's start off with the first matchup and try to predict what's going to go on. Don't worry, I'm actually not going to make you predict things that are going on. Warriors versus Valkyries has to be mentioned. Valkyries players still playing from overseas, a few of them, so that's something we'll touch on with that team a little bit later on when we get there. But let's look at this Warriors team. Nika, Cubo, Fred, Dardes, Vote, Neil. A tough draw. You have to go up against the Dragons there in week 1, but still showed some promise.
They did, man. That team looked a lot better than I thought they would have, considering how fresh a squad they are. Sure, you do still have that core of Dardes and Vote and Cubo Fred who have played together in the past before, and, you know, Dardes, Vote together, kind of just the power couple of the SPL right now, but introducing new shot caller Neilma, I mean, that's really the big difference maker for me. How well is Neilma able to mesh in with this squad? Is he still acting as primary shot caller? And how well is this squad going to react and play around this new style? A lot of these guys used to that more rapper school of thought, that more kind of reactive play style, whereas Neilma, I think, kind of directs his teams to a much more proactive style. So I think that's going to take a little bit of time for them to adjust to, but even saying that, they adjusted quickly, and they made that Jade Dragon set a lot closer than I think a lot of the fans would have expected.
Agreed. It's ever so important for that guy that we just highlighted, Cubo Fred, to not only set pace, but keep pace. And it's going to be an interesting matchup. Cubo Fred up against Johnny here today. We'll get to Johnny and the rest of the Valkyrie squad a little bit later. But Cubo Fred really hit that stride towards the end of Season 7, made a fantastic run at Worlds with that Pittsburgh Knights squad. So continuing that momentum, really establishing that momentum, I think is going to be very important, especially for this Oni Warrior squad in general. You got the Dragons matchup out of the way. Now it's time to get that ball rolling, get some wins under your belt, because the expectations for this Warrior squad are at an all-time high. We talked a little bit about Cubo Fred out of the jungle. Nika, stalwart solo laner for the Oni Warriors, sat down with one of us to discuss this game. Take a listen.
I am here with Nika, solo laner for the Oni Warriors. And Nika, talk to me first about how this team is feeling kind of with these new members. What is that you all have come up with this kind of your preferred play style if things were to go according to plan that you guys would like to execute on?
I think right now we're still learning how to play together. Mainly the daughters with Fred and Neil, and obviously the ping issues aren't helping with scrims mainly, but that's still a lot that we're learning as a team, how we want to play the map and what areas we want to play around. And I think especially the past week, in scrims, things have been going way better. We've made way more progress, and I think we'll be a good mix of SSG playstyle and PK combined kind of, right? Which is what you'd expect. So
yeah.
And going forward, we still don't really have a set identity, but it won't take that much longer. Especially when everyone's here. I mean, then we'll probably be completely different, way easier to play.
You guys are going to be, I think, really scary once that happens. Talk to me about what Neil and Cubo's voices have been like for you all coming in, because they're replacing for you all Cheerio and Raffer, right? Really good players for you. What have their voices been like, kind of adding that into the mix?
It's great, honestly. I think I expected it to go well. I mean, everyone's like friends on the team. We've known each other for a long time, and
Yeah.
I think the transition's gone like way smoother than I thought. Like communication's great. Like I'm really enjoying playing with Fred already. Like it's a big switch up to Cherry, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm loving like playing with Fred and the way he communicates. Like we're already getting along well, I'd say. Vote and Neil as well. I'd say they're already like clicking way faster than I thought they would. And I think everyone's just like enjoying the team so far, which is great to see, like instantly.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, man. You guys are going up against the Valkyries, though, first here this week, and that is a team kind of like you all that I'm not sure is completely settled just yet.
Yeah.
When you know that's the kind of team that you're going up against, what's the strategy for it then? Is it just to focus on yourself, or do you feel like there's something you got to make sure the Valkyries don't have?
I mean, this early on, I think it's always better to focus on yourself. It's still so early on, like there's no set meta. You just want to play what you figured out's the best for your own team. But for Valkyrie specifically, of course, they're all like they're all in EU still, so they'll have a lot of ping issues potentially. But I mean, they're also great players, and especially Zonny, I'd say, is going to be their key to victory this season. So
Yeah.
we're just going to have to try and keep them quiet, I'd say.
A task that's easier said than done. I think Johnny's
Yeah.
probably going to have a pretty good season here, man. Nika, it's always great to get a chance to hear from you, man. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, and then good luck in your set coming up here against the Valkyries.
Thank you.
I think Nika there expresses a lot of the same confidence that us as casters and fans and viewers all around the world are expressing in this team. It's all uphill from a week 1 bout with the Jade Dragons. On to the Valhalla Valkyries, though, Mifflin. Let's get it out of the way, all right? You can say it with me. It's going to be hard to do with a little bit of lag.
Ping.
Yeah,
Lag.
ping. There we go. Ping, lag. It's happening. It exists. Actually, spot on there, Miff. I'm fantastic 1 for 2 there. We got that out of the way. That's existing, and it's something we maybe will talk about later on this set. But let's talk about this team as a core, right? This Valhalla Valkyrie squad. They go up against the Solar Scarabs. They win a game in that set, but they lose ultimately 2-1 against an up-and-coming talented Scarabs team. What was your takeaway from the Valkyrie squad? We had a lot of questions going into week 1 about how would the old heads and Emilito look? How would Raffer and Zeros kind of translate coming back into the SPL? What was your overall take?
It felt like, well, we'll start from the old heads. I'll address those questions in reverse order and how you asked it. Emilito, to me, I think was very impressive considering how long it's been since he's played at a competitive level. He was still able to find those opportunities to look for these 1v1s. He's still leaning on that God pool that worked for him back then, and he's making it work for him now. Jing Wei seems to be the focus for Emilito inside of that Hunter role. But outside of that, and I know you said we were going to talk about it later, I think those ping issues didn't look like they were affecting him too horribly. Emilito goes in aggressively, consistently on that Jingwei, still taking those auto attack trades despite having that heightened ping. But I cannot talk about the Valkyries without mentioning the shining hope for all of European Smite, the young jungler from Serbia, Johnny. This guy looks so incredibly potent in that first match up against the Scarabs last week on this pick in particular, this Loki. It was an aggressive early game style on this god that I really associate with a much more late game slanted focus. Loki has that potential to be the one-shotter, but Johnny plays him as a frontliner and really elevated the rest of his team around him. I think he's certainly one to keep our eyes on.
And I already love seeing, despite a loss, the picks that he's able to play. Because remember, the conversation piece that we had around Johnny was coming from the SEC. It was all solo, late-game, hyper-carry type gods, the Kalis, the Bakasuras of the world. I love seeing the transition and the ability for Johnny to also play more facilitator type gods. The Ratatoskr, perfect example. You have the potential to get in, do big damage, find those executes as an assassin wants to do, but you're also able to provide setup to the rest of your team. That's an ever so important part of this team in this matchup. And I agree with you there, Mifflin. If we're gonna be forced to kind of discuss the ping thing, I think definitely worthwhile mentioning that the team looked good despite it. So while it might play a role, they did their best given the current circumstances. So I think expectations for this squad are still pretty high, right? I mean, you start off, you have some momentum to get building. Momentum is that early season word we like to throw around. And this Valkyrie squad can get some behind them, starting with a win today over the Warriors, if they're able to get it done.
And speaking of momentum, I think this is a team that is exemplifying it. They are very momentum-based. The one match they find or inside of the set up against the Scarabs was a complete blowout, it felt like. An early game lead balloons very quickly, and then from there they were able to keep grasp of it. So if anything, that could be an indicator of the style that the Valkyries are trying to go for. They want to be that early game slanted team, kind of blow you out before you're able to devise your own strategies a la Ghost towards the beginning of Season 7. It's just whether or not they can find that transition into the mid, into the late game consistently, and continually find W's, and then maybe we start to see him take some sets.
And Johnny proves that he's flexible. He can play the sort of early pressure facilitator type gods. He can play the late game Loki delete ya type gods, and apparently he also interviews pretty well. If you don't believe me, John Finch was able to sit down with Johnny prior to this big matchup.
All right, well, I am here with Johnny Jungler for the Valkyries. And first thing, Johnny, this is my chance, first chance getting to talk to you, rather. Since you're coming up here to the SPL and all that, just talk to me a little bit about what that feels like. I know you've played with a lot of these guys before, but what does it mean to kind of be all the way up here in the SPL?
I mean, it's just a lot different than new SML, I think, especially the new map. Like, the game is played a lot faster, and yeah, I'm definitely going to need some time to adjust to this.
Well, what about all these guys you're playing with? You're playing with Zeros and Raffer and Emilito. You got all these, vets on the team who've been playing for so long and done so much. How does it feel to be playing with these guys at this high level?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely super fun. I mean, I've been playing with these guys like for years, so it's nothing new for me. Just that I'm actually SPL now.
Right, you've been up there at the top of the EU rank scene, all that stuff for a long time, so sure you're at least familiar with these guys. You're going to be playing the Warriors here next. This is a team that's also kind of a bunch of EU guys that are forming this new roster as well. How do you guys feel about their strength and what you need to make sure to do to get a win against them?
I mean, I think compared to our last set, I think we just play early game. Like, if you focus a bit more on the early game and make sure we don't make stupid mistakes there, I think it should be fine.
And what about your play style? I mean, when you were in the SCC, SML, you kind of picked these hyper carries a lot and would farm it up and make sure you could hard carry these games. Is that what you're going to look to do here, or you're going to get kind of shaking it up, look to get involved a whole bunch of other ways?
I mean, I'll just play the best way I think the game should be played. Right now, I think the guys I used to play last year are that good, so I'm just adapting.
Absolutely. Well, it's good to get a chance to hear from you, my man. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do throughout this year and especially this upcoming set. So good luck in that one, and thanks for talking to me.
Thank you.
Love getting to hear from Johnny, a quiet confidence that'll push the Valkyries forward, hopefully into some success here, starting with the Warriors matchup they've got now. Without further delay, picks and bans for game number 1. Kickoff right here and right now. So, a big shift. Week number 1, Mifflin, is always the week where you see what these teams have been practicing, you see what works, you see what doesn't work, and now it's week 2 and onward where you adapt to the data that you've gathered in the week prior. So given what's been gathered in the week prior, you still imagine, you talked about it a little bit in the pregame show, picks like the Sobek, like the Athena, Tiamat, we saw a little bit of last week. Actually, I think it was the Valkyries that played it. Didn't blow us out of the water outside of the split push, but those types of picks maybe still continue to be the ban-worthy gods here in this matchup.
I'm expecting the meta to be largely the same as we saw last week. The only thing that I can imagine changes here is now that we've seen some of these guys play, we might see some more targeted bans come through. For example, I wouldn't be overly surprised if the Oni Warriors decide to ban out that Loki, because that was Johnny looking at his absolute best. That was an adaptation the Scarabs made within their own set, and it kind of turned the entire set around. But for now, bans staying largely the same. Sobek and Set, first 2 overall for the Oni Warriors. Valkyries take out the Guan Yu, still thinking about that second one for themselves. It is going to be the Tsukiyomi, but they're still leaving a lot of value on the table. Tiamat still available. Athena still available as well.
So the Oni Warriors now, with that being said, Mifflin, they're in a spot where they can leave both of Tiamat and Athena available if they want one or the other. Yamoja's still around, so there's 3 pretty solid picks that we've seen pretty highly prioritized that the Oni Warriors can still leave on the table for themselves here, depending on what direction they want to go with this ban. They'll take away the Athena, so now the Valkyries, with the Emoja and Tiamat maybe being the two most important remaining picks, are kind of in an awkward spot here, Mifflin. They kind of need to pick their poison. Do they leave one open? Do they leave both open? Do they give one or the other over to the Oni Warriors? I think the Oni Warriors in this first pick spot have drafted themselves pretty well.
Whoa.
Tiamat is left open. Do you think it has to be a Tiamat pick?
I think Tiamat is incredibly strong right now, and she kind of benefits from the fact that not many people have a ton of experience playing against her. I can't speak personally for the SPL scrim culture, whether or not she's making it through a lot there, but as far as ranked goes, she is constantly banned, so maybe that just exposure to dealing with that split push potential or the ability to deal with that damage mitigation that she has isn't quite just there yet, but I do think she is incredibly strong still, and as do the Warriors, taking her first off overall in the draft.
Yeah, 1 game played, 0 games won. The split push, though, in that game kept Tiamat in it, right? It was the minions that really kept things kind of interesting, not to scoff at the damage and the potential that Tiamat has in that regard. Heimdall then left open. Valkyries feeling like Hunter is the area where they want to go first. This could be a Heimdall is just that good with the way we've seen these builds go. Miff, you and I casted SEC earlier on today, saw a couple Heimdalls, Wind Demon, Deathbringer, name of the game, out of that pick. And it could be another Loki here for Johnny, a pick that he looked all right on in the game where we saw it.
He does, and Dave, nice prediction there. Loki does get locked in here by the Valkyries, and it is interesting, I think, that they do elect to take Heimdall first off overall, especially considering the Valkyries really were prioritizing that Jing Wei last week, but take a peek at the Hunters that are available across the board, not a single ban or pick besides this Heimdall coming through. That could have been an Apollo, it could have been that On Her who saw a lot of focus last week, and Oni Warriors certainly going to take the On Her for themselves, but as the weeks go on, I know I said at the top of the P's and B's that the meta really hasn't shifted too much week by week, but we really are starting to stray away from that Apollo first pick, first ban meta.
Right.
He's been going largely by the wayside recently.
What do you think the world, I mean, what's the idea here with this On Her? Because SEC hasn't so much been On Her centric, but the SPL has absolutely loved this pick. We've seen On Her first overall picked by a couple of the teams here in the draft. You know, the ult has some immunity and some great damage. Is that really all you need to leverage a pick into the top tier of Hunters?
I'm not sure it's that itself. Certainly that plays into it, Dave, the ability to rotate in and have that phenomenal ultimate with CC immunity, the safety of the leap as well. But I think it could also be due to the fact that the map is a lot larger in Season 8, so it kind of incentivizes a much more aggressive Hunter playstyle. Back in Season 7, we were seeing junglers go for 1 minute 30-second ganks over in the duo lane, and that it constantly rotate through there. But in Season 8, it's a much larger commitment for a jungler to go over into the long lane. Instead, we're seeing a much more 2-1-2 meta. Have jungler hover around soul lane, or maybe the 3v3 in mid, which is allowing these Hunters to play aggressively, have On-Hers jump in whenever they want. It's pretty good, and it allows him, once he does decide to rotate out, as you already highlighted, that CC immunity on the ultimate means he's going to be a very hard to deal with target.
How are you going to do the Ganesh like that? Take it, Oni Warriors banning out Ganesh. I am desperate to see this pick, but it's not going to happen here or now, as the Oni Warriors figure that Raffer is a big enough threat on that god, so let's take it off the table. The Morgan as well, flexible enough that it raises some concerns here for the Oni Warriors. Similar idea for the Valkyries. Let's split our bans, 1 support and 1 jungler over there. So the Oni Warriors still have a lot to work with here on their side, but it's the Valkyries who are going to get to pick first after that second wave of bans. Mifflin, the Xing Chen, has been very popular on the lower half of these drafts, and he provides fantastic utility, fantastic engage with that ultimate as well, that it just makes some sense here for the Valkyries to go towards that pick.
Yeah, and it also fits into Raffer's playstyle incredibly well. He's going to be able to play that aggressive in-your-face style, that annoying, just looking for poke, and then leverage that HP 5 from his passive. Even if he is dedicating a good deal of his HP bar to be annoying, at least he can regenerate it up himself, as well as just having phenomenal beads burning capacity. Now, if Raffer goes in with the washing machine ultimate, burns at least 1 set of beads, now Johnny's going to have a very good target to go onto with his own ultimate, the Assassinate. So I do like this pick for them. But Oni Warriors with their last two get some pretty strong stuff themselves. Kuzenbo and Camazotz locked in. That's a pretty ridiculous front line. And when I'm talking about the front line, I'm not just talking about Camazotz, Kuzenbo, and King Arthur. Tiamat goes into the four-legged stance. She's going to be right there with them. On her, one of the most aggressive hunters of the game, going to be jumping in as well. Oni Warriors, they're going to bring the fight to the Valkyries.
Wow, and then Zeros is going to get the Giannis at the end of it. So it's what, a whole bunch of picks for Hurriwind, a couple of picks for Baronic over there for the Scarabs, and now we're going to get to see Zeros piloting the Giannis. Look at the draft, though, that the Valkyries have brought here into game number 1. The picks and the pivots that are around this Giannis, does it all kind of synergize in a comfortable way for you?
I think it certainly can, but this Valkyries composition is so execution heavy. They need to be finding these picks before the true 5-on-5 engagement starts. If Johnny has to walk into a fight and be a frontliner for his team with his tankier build, shifter shield on Chile likely going to get picked up, and then looking at some of that one-shot potential, that's going to be a very tough start, especially considering how kind of inconsistent the CC is on the side of the Valkyries. Kuzenbo going for a push can work, but way easier said than done. Sun Wukong with a 72 transformation stun, sure, that's a single target stun CC, but you're going to need a little bit more. I think the Valkyries, if anything, could have benefited from a much more standard mid-mage, or even inside of Zeros' God Pool, the Chang'e could have made up for a lot of that lack of CC.
Well, look, you'll never catch me complaining about more Giannis picks, because I just think it's one of the most fun picks to watch here at the moment, but I do agree with your assessment there, Mifflin. On the other side, the Oni Warriors obviously have a draft that you're very excited about. A lot of it centered around the front line, the tankiness, the survivability that we're going to be seeing in a lot of these fights. What do you think the game plan is for this Oni Warriors draft to win here in game number 1?
I'm thinking it's going to be side lane aggression, have King Arthur play however aggressively he wants to inside the short lane, have the threat of Camazotz coming over and confirming that kill. On her can do the exact same thing with Kuzenbo backing him up, and then you just allow Tiamat to free farm the map, play that center, wait till level 20, and then once it is a 5-on-5 engagement phase of the game, utilize her ability to spawn minions and actively, or passively rather, split push the map.
Mifflin, against all odds, the Tiamat is 0 for 1 here so far in the SPL. Fingers crossed that this pick finds a win here. Game number 1, Oni Warriors versus Valkyries. It's Finch and Gore on the call.
Thank you, Dolson and Mifflin. We are lined up for a good one here with the Warriors and the Valkyries and Tiamat on the battleground. But Johnny, on what has become a signature Loki pick, has that ready. Zeros has the Giannis. Gore. There are exciting picks on both sides here. What are you drawn to?
Man, right now I'm drawn to the fact that if you asked me any time during Season 7 that we were going to say the phrase signature Loki pick, I would have scoffed at you and probably argued for a little bit, but I think it looked good last year. I'm excited to see, or not last year, last week. Keep doing that today, but last week for Johnny. Last year, Johnny looked solid through all of his games. But last week, this Loki was the big takeaway. Helped them win game number 1. Didn't show up for games 2 and 3 there, and they ended up losing those. So I'm excited to see what he can do, but it's really hard to argue for Loki and focus on Loki when you've got Tiamat, you've got On Her. I mean, Camazotz, King Arthur, and the Kuzenbo, like pretty much all 5 of the Oni Warriors picks feel stacked, and even the ones that don't, maybe Kuzenbo is someone you could throw under that list that doesn't feel stacked. It was such a big pick for Neil last year and so prominent that alongside an On Her there in the duo lane, that's just going to be very prominent. That's going to be so much pressure that they're going to be able to build up in the early game. I don't expect Dardes to have much issues, if any, in mid. And so a lot of pressure comes on to Cuvo, but guess what? Camazotz worked out wonderfully and beautifully for him throughout the Worlds run, as well as what we got to see a little bit before that. Like every single pick, I think from top to bottom for the Warriors, fits their style.
And it's a real treat to get to see someone like Dardes pilot this Tiamat, as you were kind of talking about there in the tail end, Gore, because I think he's one of our very, very best here in the mid lane. I know Paul kind of earned that title with that World's Run performance he put on, and deservedly so. But I got to have Dardes, right there next to him, maybe like a 1A, 1B type of scenario with how strong he is consistently and how often he will play, basically just his own picks, whatever he thinks is good, and now piloting what everyone thinks is good in this Tiamat, who has the ability to sort of duplicate the bus by eating one and dropping another, who has the ability to send minions to other waves and farm in both places with the stance change that adds in those procs for her, makes her that much harder to take down, or when she's up in this, when she's flying around just like this, has that great ability to add magical damage like we're seeing here. I mean, this is just such a strong pick to put in his hands. I think he's got a great chance as kind of the primary and only magic damage dealer. Got to give Neoma a little credit, I suppose, on the Kuzenbo to really cause some problems with the Valkyries.
Yeah, it kind of has this flux between the standard mage, kind of what you expect to see out of Zeros here, right? Some CC, but a lot of damage that can come through. That's the flying stance, and then a setup mage that really can come through with the ground stance, as well as the fact that you can get a little more frontliney, as Mifflin had highlighted there on the desk. I want to see more of this Tiamat, mainly so I can figure out more of this Tiamat. It's been slow early games for her each time we've seen her so far. We got to see Zero's pilot her last week, so he has that experience going against her. I think he had a good performance despite a bad game. So it was one of those moments that maybe didn't get to highlight her to the full effect of what we could expect. I'm also wondering how the teams will use... We've seen a lot of experience sharing in SMITE, right? How do you split your buffs? Who goes where? But since Tiamat can pick up 2 buffs, I really want to know which second buff like Dardes wants to maybe focus on, as well as where he splits that, right? Is he going for the speed buff because mobility is just solid, or is he going for a purple buff or a blue buff? Like, where do they split that, and when do they start splitting that up? Because the question of farm comes into the equation. Like, there's so much to really factor in for Tiamat to really make her optimized.
Yeah, it's a lot to consider, and there's so much sort of around the edges that if some value is dropped here or there, like they're not always getting a secondary buff, or maybe the minion spawning too soon, I don't know if I'm ready to call those a misplay, as Johnny is considering a duo lane gank. He's inside the stealth. They've already got Neoma low and so Johnny comes out from the shadows and drops the damage. No chance for young Neoma to survive this one, as Raffer is the one that gets the kill in the end. He gave Johnny every opportunity, but eventually got to make sure that kill happens and the Valkyries get first blood.
Everyone's been in that position that Raffer was just in there. You see the support just on the other side of a Scorpion. Your melee assassin didn't get that last hit. You throw out any ability you have. It doesn't matter if you get the kill and they don't. I mean, granted, First Blood Bounty, yeah, it'd be really nice for Emilito or for Johnny to pick that up, especially Johnny. What we saw him do on this Loki last week, you maybe want to pump some funds into his gold pockets. But realistically, you just want the kill. You just need to ensure that Neil does not walk out of the live, or else you're going to be feeling that. And it's a good way to really knock you off balance.
Could be some trouble for Ducky over here in solo, as Nika has him grabbed. That's just Neoma lurking. Can't get there in time, and Ducky makes it out of it safely. I think we have also seen Vote over in duo drop his ultimate to clear the wave and speed up, and now Neoma in trouble again. Dash, though, allows for the escape. Zeros will not keep up the chase, and Neoma able to make it out of there. But I'm right alongside you there, Gore. I think ideally, you get Johnny that first blood and let him get a little bit bigger, but in the end, no complaints. Truthfully, you just want to get that first blood bounty on your own team and make sure that the Warriors don't have it, as Raffer can't find the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Neoma basically just outpaces it, outwalks it, and comes back towards his team, so a big ultimate for the Valkyries now on cooldown.
Well, I was going to highlight that exact ultimate, that Raffer was technically level 5 while Neil was level 4, so maybe getting that experience and that little bit of gold was beneficial to him, but if the ult doesn't do anything, then you don't really get anything out of that small lead, and so Neil able to just walk away from that one. Still hasn't hit level 5 there for Neil, and admittedly, the Kuzenbo ult is... Again, kind of the opposite. Think, I guess, in a way, Fear No Evil in a certain amount, where it's just displacement, not necessarily like what Raffer has, which is pulling everybody together, similar to like Ares, Cerberus, where the goal is to set you down in a specific location. Neil's going to be good for Peel, but I don't know if it's as crucial for his ult to happen earlier.
Raffer's here, but will he be too late, as Emilito is already low, but the body block's too good, and Vote can't find the damage. In comes Johnny, and that's 2 kills for Valkyries, all off of jungle rotation to duo. And Gore, that's not something we see a lot in this Season 8 map. It's such an investment to rotate over to duo, but Johnny's now done it twice and been rewarded.
And that's something that I was wondering if we'd start to see a little bit more of junglers for the last week, and at least in the SBL, but as well as what we've seen in the SEC. They're hanging out on the right-hand side of the map. There's a lot to going on back there. There's back camps, there's speed buff, flute buff, mid camps, scorpions now. Like, everything on the right-hand side of the map just seems to be, like you said, a little more fruitful, whereas you have to have an investment. You go left, you need a kill or you need Gorp. and otherwise you're walking away with nothing, right? You just spend a little bit of time over there for no reason because your mid laners are getting their red buff on cooldown, the purple buff is getting taken by the duo lane on cooldown. Good luck trying to get to those lane scorpions over there. Those aren't for you either. So you really are, as a jungler, kind of set to focus more on this right-hand side. But if you're going to get kills out of it, then go make Vote feel uncomfortable. And that has to be from Imolito's trust in his team, right? You don't get that low, sub 200 health without trusting that your team is A, going to be able to body block for you, and B, going to get that kill before you end up falling down. Played very calmly. The Valkyries, you can see that communication. And this is something that we got to see in Game 1 of their set against the Scarabs, where they just felt like a good, cohesive team. We'll have to see if that can stand up the tell of time, not just for Game number 1, but really for the set, because maybe they are the Warriors, or the Valkyries, I guess, at this point, ascending us to Game number 3, but can they confirm themselves enough wins to get a set under their belt?
Exactly the question. Both these teams needing a win. One for sure going to come away with one at the end of this one. I don't know, man. I'm not beating Vote up too bad about that duo lane gank over there, Goran. I know you were talking about how it was just good trust from Imolito, so we're on the same page here, but he does nearly everything perfectly for the solo kill to Imolito. If there aren't two people lying in the wings, he might even turn that into a kill anyway, as Johnny has been caught out. The damage from Dardes there, but a good portal from Zeros negates all the trouble. He is through space and time to make sure he got through, as Ducky is now making his way in, but Neilmal has the ult. He escapes, and Cubo forced to use Bat out of health purely for the retreat. That is a lot of Oni Warriors cooldowns used purely to flee.
Yeah, 2 ults on either side, or 3 ults there, if you want to count Dardes technically, as it has a much lower cooldown. And now Vote looking once again to try and style on him. Like you had said, technically had the upper hand in the 1v1 earlier. It just turned into a 3v1 way faster than he was ready to really fight into. And now he's still got that level up, maybe about half a level here since we just saw Imolito tick to level 9. It's enough experience that if he hits, admittedly not many big, I want to say checkpoints, thresholds where you're going to get a big power spike. 9 was the one where I think it's going to make the biggest difference, right? That second point in your ultimate where we just saw Vote throw out those spears to try and get the damage. I think it's nice to see that Vote doesn't let that detract him. In fact, is farming even better, going for the Greater Scorpion. I actually think this is part of the reason why we've seen a lot more on her. The Furies break that pillar the instant that they walk into it. That's not the same of the Scorpion, so he's able to solo farm it a little bit better. I think he's going to be one of the only hunters that can do that literally without sacrificing his life. If you don't have full Devo stacks, you're going to have a much more difficult time. Imolito's going to take way longer. Your Apollos, everybody, anybody that's not on her is just going to take a little more time in game before they could solo something like that. So on her, guarantees themselves enhanced buffs, then gets this enhanced purple buff. Vote's looking to fight, and I'm really here for it.
He is. He would just really like to get a 1v1 as Johnny's pushed into the damage, has to defensively to escape, but still has those beads in his back pocket. Good pressure, though, from the Warriors to force that ultimate out from Johnny and maybe even buy Vote a reprieve over here in duo where he's been the target. Desert Fury used, and Imolito now low. This has been rough for him, getting rougher. Vote finds the first kill for the Warriors and puts Imolito down.
We were talking about On Her a lot this last week, where the discussion was that, I think I even saw this on Twitter a little bit as well, especially because there were a lot of discussions around the Persephone rework. People turned their attention to On Her saying, On Her at base is really simple. Like, there's not a lot of complicated things in his kit. There's some minutia, like the slow on your pillar, as well as the fact that you can deal more damage, the way your passive works and interacts with your autos and your abilities, and what order to use them in. The pros enhance that to insane capabilities, and that's where I think you get to see it. A good On Her player is just fun to watch because everything feels clean, and that's what that fight was from Vote. It was just clean. He utilizes everything in the kit to pretty much its maximum potential and is able to pick up the kill on the tail end of it. Finally gets that solo he's been looking for, 2 levels up over Imolito, and realistically, he's the big lead right now for them. 2 levels down for Neil, so kind of offsetting the difference in support players right now. Everybody else is more or less right next to each other, maybe a little bit of experience favoring the Oni Warriors at this point, and they've gotten a little bit of gold finally lining their pockets. But they aren't running away with anything on either side, even though they get both Scorpions for the Warriors. No one's really been able to run away with a massive lead yet.
Yeah, but I think there's a pretty clear gap over here in duo. as Vote continues to give Emily the hands every time Immel steps up. So I think that they got to make sure that if they want Immel to be careful over there going forward against Vote in this set, they're going to need some presence like we saw. I thought Johnny was just looking for in early ganks, but it might have been needed with the kind of pressure this on her has given Vote in the long lane. But now we're seeing a bit of a dance with the Fury having spawned. Oracle's here as well. Each team would love to have those. Get some additional info on when the other team might start it up, but it's the Valkyries here first. Raffer been hit by the Impale, and looks like those Oracles ended up split. So no one will get that free vision. Raffer makes it out safely, and the Fury now up though, Gore. A little early, but is there a team you want to see come over here to the Fury? Or do you like this kind of slower pace and maybe wait till later on in the game?
With the lead that Vote's been able to pick up, as well as the fact that I think he's about to get his Executioner, that's typically the item we've been seeing here. Yeah, the Executioner picked up on that back. Yep. Plus the ward coverage, like there's a couple of factors coming into this one, but the ward coverage from the Warriors specifically has that Fury Pit lined, so they can see when the Valkyries are walking through that portion of the jungle as well as if they were getting aggressive. It feels like the Warriors want the Fury, and I kind of would like to see them be the ones to force the issue. I feel like if you can get Raffer baited in to use his ult in an unfortunate position, then you can just Kuzenbo push him right into the team fight. On her, we just saw Vote will absolutely decimate anybody that stands in his way. The only big threats at that point are Johnny going deep for the backline. He's already showcased, especially with Loki's ultimate, that he can get back there onto Vote pretty easily. And Zeros with that through space and time, being able to quite literally shoot you from halfway across the map and find a lot of damage onto your body because of it. I expect Zeros is going to be a force to be reckoned with here. And so there's a lot of little factors to deal with, and I admittedly would say just wait until you see Zeros back, then all of a sudden there's your opening, right? He would have to use his ult in order to engage. Maybe the damage is on point, but it's not going to be enough, I think, to get him there fast. Same thing for Johnny. If you can ensure one of them is out of the engagement, I like the idea for the Warriors to get into that Fury Pit and try to burn it down as fast as they can.
See if that ends up being the call then, Gore, as if we're going to give Vote credit for how far ahead he is in duo, we've got to give Johnny credit for how much he's basically left Cuvo Fred in the dust. It's a 2-level disparity in the jungle. Finally, the second relic's coming online now for Cuvo Fred. It's Blink and Beads for him. But he's been inactive in this game so far. Really all of the Warriors have, as they've kind of kept their head down, except for Vote, who takes it to Emilito every time he sees him in lane. But now the grouping here, Nika even showing up as well. It's 5 members on the left side of the map starting up the Fury, and the Valkyries know Raffer has all the information, but it looks like they will rotate over to contest instead of splitting up the map. Through space and time, though, does not connect. They reset the Fury, then start it back up and dare the Valkyries to step forward and contest. It's low, but the Valkyries steal it away. The confirmation from Dardes is off the mark, and that means the Valkyrie is able to grab the objective. It's Furious Roar with 160 damage.
I mean, that's just unfortunate timing for them, and something that you have to face. They bait out Zeros that through space and time to make sure it is not going to be the end-all, be-all confirmation destroyer of objectives here. And then they look at their own kits, and I'm going to be honest with you, Finch, they just don't have a lot of big burst that's going to come through. Your Scyllas lately, I mean, even Yanis to a certain extent, but, you know, your cool Khans that we got to see a little bit last week. All of those have those massive, giant burst damage ultimates versus what we have here, which was a little bit of nothing that comes through. Raffer is able to make just enough space for himself to get in there, and if your damage is going to be just off the mark or just not enough, that's going to be what happens to you. The support's going to jump in and do it. I don't think Raffer was actually expecting to walk away completely with that steal, but able to find it nonetheless is even more impressive. And maybe one of the downsides of Tiamat is that lack of confirm that we're going to end up seeing out of her.
Right, and Dardes had damage there. It just either wasn't timed or ended up not being enough, as you kind of covered already, Gore, but that is a real problem. The Warriors had to make sure they're able to handle a 160 damage difference, though. You're not, beating up your mid laner for being off by that much, I don't think.
Not at all.
You want to be able to make sure that you're securing those when you're side up and having such a confident position. It looks like the Warriors came over and grabbed Pyro, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like that was indeed the case. They've still got the buff kind of down there over their own fountain. So at least they got that in return, but that should have been a pretty big swing in the Warriors' favor. Starting up the Fury first, should have been able to confirm it and get Pyro. As Nika backs up, he should be safe here in solo. just unfortunate they weren't able to get it to go their way. Off by not much damage. It's hard to really be that mad at Dardes.
Yeah, ultimately just nullifies the lead the Warriors had, right? Still leaves a little bit over in their favor, as you had highlighted, but for the most part, it just puts this game back at more or less even. And it's less of a, oh man, Dardes messed up, and more of a, is Tiamat going to have, like, where are her strengths, what are her weaknesses, and that I think should be noted as a big weakness. We've seen mages dismissed for less in the past for meta when you know, Kukulkan, Scylla, and big burst mages are the meta, then you lose out on others. Merlin specifically is one of those conversation havers that we would talk about because he doesn't have the big burst that you would see out of some of the other mages, but he has that burn and that potential to kill the Gold Fury or a Fire Giant just straight up faster than the other team can reply. And Tiamat doesn't have that either, so where does she fall in terms of objective? We typically see her pressure coming from those minions and walking down the lanes. That's where a lot of the conversation is about her. A kind of pseudo backdoor mechanic that sometimes can be frustrating, right? We saw Phoenix straight up get taken last week because I think it was Zeros at the time, was just sending them down the right-hand lane and nobody was able to retaliate in time. But if that's like her biggest strength, where else can she excel, and does she deserve to be this top pick and top ban that we've been seeing? I think there's starting to be some conversation, at least from what I've been seeing, around maybe leaving her at least fall to the wayside a little bit. Maybe not so much, just a little bit.
Right, to the point where you want to plan a comp around and not just take when it's there. We'll see. 0 for 1 so far, and the Warriors are here for a hefty red buff invade. 5 members set up for it. And the red buff does go down in favor of the Order side team this time. So this game now we're very, very even, where the Warriors had a chance to spread things open a little bit in terms of this lead. That did not happen once the Valkyries were able to steal back that Fury. Experience favoring the Valkyries a fair bit, about 1,400, and the gold basically even. So that means at this point here, any team could take this win still. To come down to Johnny with his tremendous lead in the jungle, 18-15, or perhaps Vote with his lead over in duo, who can leverage that lead for more impact.
Honestly, I want to see more Johnny. I feel like we got those early duo lane ganks, and then I haven't seen it. And hide nor tail of the jungler, save for when we talk about the experience difference right now. Cuvo's been hanging around, Johnny's been hanging around, but neither have really been making the big bang in the middle of a team fight or a good gank so far. So Vote is maybe the most likely to actually use and utilize that lead, but I'd like to see a little bit more out of Johnny here because he has that control, and we saw how many kills this man can put on the board in the right scenarios. I think that he is in control, and they're starting to ping out for this Oni Fury. They're making rotations for it as well. Let's see if Johnny can go big here.
Well, the Valkyries have the defensive positioning. They're entirely inside the Fury pit. But the Oni Warriors have now arrived. This will not be free for the Valkyries if they do commit. So poke from Dardes does end up bringing Ducky a little bit down. Still looking relatively healthy as Nika off the mark there with that ultimate charge, unable to connect. I think he wanted Zeros if he could find him. That did not quite happen. Neomod takes a poke as well, so the Oni Warriors resetting here a bit, kind of giving up that space to the Valkyries and letting them have it.
And it's kind of surprising to see him be as passive as they are. Raffer, again, not going to connect on the through or the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but that's actually going to be Neil maybe caught out here.
He does look to be in trouble. Through space and time already expended, but he's been locked down by Emilito. So in comes Kubo Fred, trying to buy some time for his support. Neomar uses the ult and is now retreating to the right side.
What?
Ducky gonna keep up the chase as well, but still, Neomar draws breath, so the Valkyrie's forced to retreat. All but one ultimate expended, trying to grab the life of the support.
That shield from Britwood. Look. This is not something you are going to get to talk about often because most of the time those shields are just a little bonus fact, right? I can now take a little hit of burst from that mage without stressing out about it. But just enough to eat a couple of abilities and let you walk out alive. Still not enough to give, I think, full control over, I was going to say, of the Fury, but it looks like the Warriors are just going to steal this one away. The Valkyries, even with the defensive positioning, the first rotations, they have nothing to do about it.
That is Johnny having his beads forced out by Neomar. He split pushed the tier 2 tower in right. That's actually pretty big. Might even slightly bring the Valkyries out ahead, depending on what this Oni wave does. As Blink for Blink traded, and Neomar continuing to expend resources out from Johnny in right. Fury goes to the Warriors. They take that. The Pyromancer being damaged by the Warriors now, and the tier 2 tower right falling in favor of the Valkyries. So a lot traded out across the map. But if this Pyromancer can go down for the Warriors, they bring it back in their favor, but the Valkyries grab it, and Rapper looking for a better Whirlwind to Rage and Steel this time gets Kupo Fred's beads out from him. They will not keep up the fight through space and time used by Zeros, and the Valkyries find a way to keep things even across the map.
The Valkyries might not be piloting the ship, but they are sure as hell making sure that the Warriors cannot run away with the game. I mean, every step of the way, we've seen it with the Fury, we just saw it with the Pyromancer. When it starts to seem like a lead is being built on the side of the Warriors, the Valkyries come through and scoop it up. And with that tier 2 on right, that tier 1 now in mid, they actually come out of all these engagements with a lead on top of the Pyromancer. So everything that they've been able to do, even though it feels like it's just swiping away at the Warriors slowly but surely, it's been enough to get them into a position of comfort. It's only 2-1 in terms of kills. It's been a very slow kill game, but the action has been non-stop. Even now, Cubo's looking for blood.
He's putting damage to Ducky, but killing a Wukong here unlikely.
That's
Maybe an attempt to force out the ultimate from him, as Ducky has been grabbed, but is now in range of the tier 1. Oxform buys time, and in the end they do force out that ultimate from Ducky. So the safety gone from him for a moment, but is that enough of a window to start up the Fire Giant? Just having Ducky low. They did get the beads from Zero as well, so that's pretty big. Ducky less safe and Zeros, and now maybe a chance to start FG.
And we've been seeing this a lot. The Hunter specifically looking down towards Vote has the crit online. The Deathbringer specifically, I think, is the big jump up. Wind Demon is nice, but having that bonus damage to your crits, he's going to hit incredibly hard, whether it's a tank, whether it's a backliner, or the Fire Giant.
It's a die, but Rapper has collected Kubo Fred in the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. That forces Bat out of Hell, used defensively from the Order side jungler, who does retreat. That was a tier 1 siege into tier 2 as through space and time nearly clips and ends the life of Kupo Fred, who does avoid it, but I don't think they're going to get this disengaged freely. The Valkyries are on their way, but Rapper impaled by a boat. Johnny trying to sneak his way in, and Dardes is the target. He has found him, but not going to be the easiest thing in the world when Dardes switches down to ground stance, back to flying, and makes his retreat. But I think the Valkyries like their chances score to start up the FG.
I mean, Cuvo's out of the fight, Neil's pretty low. Who do you send in to try and steal this one if they have to back off? It might be Dardes who can run in, but again, not a lot of objectives secure on the side of the Warriors. Maybe Vote if his ult is available, but that diamond's only halfway full right now. It seems like the Valkyries aren't going to force this one to happen, even though I feel like they were definitely in an area where potentially pursuing that Fire Giant could go their way. It's just too dangerous, right? It's too risky of a call to lean into at that point. So now you get the reset from the Warriors. A lot burned in that fight, mainly some relics on the other side. Zeros is going to be lacking those beads for another 50 seconds. Beads and Blink going to be down. Both Blinks for the solo and jungle there on the Warriors. The beads down for Nika, maybe making it a little easier for Raffer to have that impact. These beads have been his bane this entire game. I feel like he's had a couple of ults that just haven't connected, and unfortunately for him, we caught them all on camera. And the other ones that finally do connect or do lock someone down, they just beads out of there and walk away. So we haven't gotten to see maybe its full, fruition of what this ult can do. And I think the next one's still just going to be a beads burner, but then you get the presence where Johnny or Wukong or anybody else on the team with some CC is really going to be able to play setup king for someone like Imelito, who at this point should start joining these fights. Maybe wants to farm up a little more, try to catch up and get that Deathbringer online, but he's already got his starter upgraded, so theoretically he's getting more power just based on the amount of gold in pocket. It's 600 as of right now, if you're wondering what those stacks can count up. So maybe it's going to take a little while to get the Deathbringer, but he's getting a little bit more elsewhere.
That's right, a little bit of difference in those Hunter bills as Johnny starts up the Split Push Express. All aboard as the Tier 1 tower in duo goes down. And I think, Gore, if we're at this point, where it's kind of a stalemate in the game, and it has been for a while, 1-2 in kills, and still very little separation in gold and experience, then things like these Tiamat minions, which we saw pushing up duo, we saw pushing up right, and are pushing up right now as we speak, are going to be big deals in this game. What if Johnny gets caught out over here and left with a little bit of a search party sent out for him? He does not. He eludes capture and even wants to keep up the chase. Meanwhile, Raffer engaged in battle near Fire Giants. Look at this, Johnny going to just go push for the split push. Meanwhile, Vote and Neil going to start the Fury, so that means Johnny has to stop his split push plans and instead look to contest, but he's far too late. Will just retreat instead. So across the map, the Warriors managed to find themselves a nice little win by stealing away that Fury, and no one on the Valkyries forced the Fire Giant while they were there.
I'm wondering if Johnny, and maybe more specifically this Loki, is what the Valkyries view as the answer back to the Tiamat. We were talking about it, but last week Zeros was able to split push pretty heavily using the Tiamat minions. And right now, Johnny's been doing everything in his power to take more towers down than the Tiamat. Those minions that Tiamat throws down the waves have not really been able to come up.
Oh, the Ducky is low, but makes it to the Somersault Cloud. Sun Wukong, so survival and certainly still safe with the ability to retreat. Cubo Fred should have had eyes on Dardes, told him he was moving into the jungle, and Johnny tries to use the stealth to sneak back towards his team. Not successful as the Pyromancer goes down for the Warriors. So now truly less than 100 gold separates these two teams 27 minutes into the game. And we're approaching some of these characters, some of these players getting full slotted. Johnny not far with the Bumbus Hammer upgraded. Same for Cubo Fred across the way. Conduit Gem upgraded. And Sands of Time still there for Dardes, who instead elected to fill out his entire item slot. So some differences in these builds and where they look for their power spikes, likely in gold available, helping to make those decisions for them, Gore. But across the board, still, I'd reckon, very similar power levels for both teams.
You can start seeing the item, I think, that came up in conversation a lot after last week, Spectral Armor. 3 already on the board. I wouldn't be surprised if Ducky ends up picking up a 4th one, depending on where he goes. Bluestone Pendant upgraded, and he's already gone into a shield, so maybe he's going to go ahead and let that one fall by the wayside. Maybe he's not worried about the crit. Let Raffer take the brunt of that damage. Whereas the other side, again, the Warriors have picked up 2 of them for their frontliners to help try and alleviate the pressure from Imolito here. Deathbringer picked up there for Imolito as well. So big power spikes at this point, I think, are really starting to come online, especially with these starter items finishing off, the Bumbus Hammers, all those that you had just highlighted. If they weren't upgraded, have now been upgraded. And so everyone's going to be coming into this one full force and ready. It's just whether or not they're going to be able to take a big lead.
We might not have time. There are Tiamat minions in left, but Raffer starts the fight here in right. That's Thuzace in time and Whirlwind of Rage and Steel that find very little. They do get invoked beads in the bargain, though. Meanwhile, Cubo Fred and Johnny have having a battle over in left as there's action on both sides of the map. But now that Cubo's down from the ult, it looks like Johnny's winning. It brings the hands to the vets, and Johnny able to find the very first kill of this engagement. But can he do more? It's Ducky that's into the backline looking for action. The Unstable Vortex does hit Nika as Imolito falls low, but it's the only Warriors who seem routed. Those Tiamat minions are threatening the tier 2 in left, so they'll get something as Nika takes care of Imolito, but Johnny gets a second. He finds Dardes and Cubo having his impact already.
And look, Neil is just another box on the checklist right now. They've got minion pressure over there in mid. There's a question, I mean, with 3 people down, 40 seconds left for most of them to respawn. If you get one more kill here, you've already got the pressure mounting up to be able to run this down. Johnny is just running away right now. This Hydras, this Heartseeker, this Crusher, it's just too much damage to deal with.
It is indeed too much damage. We are seeing devout fans at the altar of Johnny. He looks for vote and finds the Quadra, continues the onslaught for the DSI for the Valkyries. Now Cubo Fred up shortly. This right side Phoenix should go down, but I doubt they can do much more on the back of it. In fact, we might see the Valkyries look to fully retreat, and that is the call. Those Tiamat minions did manage to split push the entirety of left now, Gore. The tier 2 fell, the Phoenix is open. The Warriors do have an avenue to victory if they can find it.
Johnny has been pushing up slowly, though, in mid. Those minions are still clashing right around there. Shouldn't be too difficult for the Warriors now that they're respawning. Try and take care of that one, but now we're enticed. Look, Johnny's 6-0-1, and Johnny has been in great positions throughout this entire game. That engage onto Cubo Fred, Johnny hung around that speed buff for pretty much the entirety of that fight. Like, he has been looping around, going for very wide ganks in here. Exactly what I wanted to see a little bit earlier, but instead of looking for it in the lane, he's going for it in the jungle, and it's put Cubo into a bad spot.
They put him in a bad spot now, but Neomod trying to disrupt his Fire Giant low and in the clutches of the Valkyries, who secure it with the through space in time. Imolito again using his ultimate on to Neomod, but last time that aided Neomod's escape. It will not do so here as Johnny unstoppable. It says so in the game, but we knew long ago in our hearts that Johnny could not be stepped to so easily. Now it's 2-8, and there's minions over in left in favor of Dardes on this Tiamat, so the Valkyries probably should deal with that. That could take the Phoenix on its own, but as soon as they do, they can start the push here, Gore. And how do you see the Warriors defending this one? What do they need to do to try and keep the Valkyries at bay?
Man, honestly, right now, I think the Warriors need to put their focus up on right-hand side, make sure those fire minions go down with the Oni Fury going the way of the Valkyries here. In just a second, yeah, there it is. So they pick that up. That's going to help alleviate pressure from Tiamat minions pretty much down packed, right? I mean, you have no worries about it. These Oni minions might just stall out wherever Dardes ends up sending his minions down the lane, but either way, it's going to make things feel a little better. In fact, Dardes is sending those minions down the right-hand lane to help try and alleviate some of the pressure from these fire minions. Exactly what I would have wanted to see here, but I don't know that you can do much more outside of the Phoenix lane. I think this Tier 2 tower on left is forfeit. It's a lot of gold. The Valkyries are then going to be able to swing themselves up, but you're looking for your defense, probably the typical 4-1 split. I wouldn't mind seeing Cuvo go for maybe a deep gank, but there hasn't been a lot of burst damage. We haven't gotten to see too much from Dardes. Vote is going to be the guy to keep your eyes on, because if his damage isn't connecting, then that's probably going to be it. The Valkyries are going to otherwise just knock them down like pillars one by one.
Let's see if that defense can come to fruition. Still Tiamat minions in right to try and keep one wave at bay, the fire wave, but we'll see if they can win that battle up against Oni plus enhanced fire. Johnny is in mid, trying to keep up the push there, with 3 dedicated to the push over in left. What an impressive Valkyrie squad this is, regardless of how this push goes, as they brought this game to this. So it's Ducky and Johnny in on the Phoenix in mid. They'll deal with Nika and one more there for the defense, but Johnny's damage is scary. Only Nika can really confidently stand up to it, but they'll back up for now. It's a 3-2 split push.
This is difficult to do, though. Johnny and Ducky together. They're just focusing the Phoenix, too. They don't care too much about Nika, although they'll get that kill anyway like it's nothing.
That is Zero's bringing in the damage, and Nika absolutely flattened. Perfectly lined up shot from Zero's longtime vet, who's happy to get another shot here in the SPL. So mid-Phoenix down. Left side, Phoenix has minions pouring in, and that becomes the target for the Chaos side team. And the Titans still falling as minions do enough damage to bring it down to half. But I think the Valkyries are unyielding. I think they see the end of this game in their sights as the frenzy popped by Raph for his team, aided and buffed as they move in. The Titan cannot stand. It is the game 1 victory, 33 minutes on the clock for the Valkyries.
I mean, and very fast at the very end there, too, right? Like, that Titan, they do their due diligence. They make sure all 3 Phoenixes are down. They walk into the Titan room, and it is dead. It is just instantly gone. Blink and you miss it. Valkyries, again, an early game kind of lack of control from them. Didn't get to see too much. A couple of good jungle ganks over there on the duo lane. But Johnny's presence in this game as it evolved and as time went on got more heavy-handed, more important. And once he got 3 of those items online, it just felt like he was unstoppable.
Yeah, Bloodforge, Hydra's, Crusher, Heartseeker, all there for my man, and he caused some problems. Let's get some Johnny spam in the chat if we could to get us through this break before we break down game number 1.
The first 20 or so minutes of that game had us all tucked in, ready for a long, long ride into the late game. And then Johnny just blows the doors off the bus and gets a quad and kind of evaporates the Oni Warriors' chances of winning game number one. Mifflin, I think lots to look at here, lots of implications from what we've seen. Now the Oni Warriors have lost 3 straight games, 1 set, but now 3 straight games after an 0-2 loss to the Jade Dragons. Tiamat is 0 for 2 so far in the SPL. Johnny is 8 kills behind Sam, second most kills in the league with the same amount of games played. This is nuts. This is crazy the way the Valkyries are playing right now.
Yeah, the Valkyries looking incredibly good, or maybe we need to take a microscope to that one. Maybe it's just Johnny looking incredibly good in that one. No, of course. Even though the jungler is the most important role in the game, it's not just the jungler's game. But how am I going to talk about anyone except for the shining hope of Europe, young Johnny coming out of Serbia, quadra kill, initiating a ton of these fights as well as First Blood. My man got a quad and First Blood. Put some respect on this guy. Look, I think this boils down to exactly one thing if you're a Warriors fan. How many games did it take the Scarabs to figure out what they needed to do? Exactly one. And what was that they figured out? It's banning Loki. Let's see if the Warriors can put up that same level of respect.
Yeah, 8 KDA, near 18,000 damage. Feels good to me. Johnny threw, I believe it was the first 7 kills of the game, had 6 of them, and then 1 assist over there on one of the early game duo gangs. Here's his quadra kill, by the way. That's a full health vote that this team ends up making their way in towards. It's going to be hard. You're going to be hard pressed to win a game, right? When a team kind of lulls you in like this, which is surprising, Miff, because if you look at the Oni Warrior squad, specifically SSG was one of those teams that felt like to kind of lull you into a sleep and then blow you out of the water in kind of one swift motion in the mid to the late game. Obviously, some swaps there, so it's not the full SSG team, but kind of the core outside of Cuvo and Neil is that same squad. And the Valkyries just kind of did that to the Oni Warriors. Johnny ends up 0 deaths, 7 kills in this one. That's a lot for how few kills were in this game. And near top damage, or literally was top damage. So Mifflin, your diagnosis here for the Warriors is more pick and ban centric maybe than anything else. If you get rid of the Loki, maybe you're having an easier time in game 2.
There's more to it than that, but I think it's pretty clear to anyone watching that match that the biggest thorn in the Warriors side was Johnny on that Loki. Might as well test him. Put him to the test. You got more than Loki? Can you do it on other gods? Let's try and figure it out. So far, Johnny has not done that. Even in the Scarab set, really struggled once that Loki ban started to come through. So I think, if anything, the Warriors have a pretty clear indicator. All right, we can start here and hope that that's enough to get us into a game 3.
Picks and bans powered by Alienware for game number 2 between the Oni Warriors and the Valhalla Valkyries. You're right though, Mifflin. It's not you don't wave a wand, take Loki off the table, and suddenly all your woes are fixed. There's some shot calling, game playing problems that need to be sorted out for the Oni Warriors as well. But I agree with your assessment. It makes life a little bit easier if you're not giving Johnny the ability to quad you and get a few more kills, double kills, solo kill over in the duo lane, whatever it might be. Your life is just a little bit easier off if you're not even giving the opportunity over. Now, if that is the case and the Oni Warriors do ban the Loki way, it's time for Johnny to flex again. The answer in the previous set that Johnny had played was the Ratatosker. Showed some promise, some engaged potential, wasn't as electric as the Loki pick was. And the magic wand has been waved. We'll see how much Stardust is in the spell here, but the Oni Warriors, I think, at least making the right strides and taking the Loki away. Tsukiyomi off the table as well, so both junglers taking a hit here early on.
Yeah, a lot of jungle bans already, but still a lot of meta still available. Tiamat does go 0-2 in the league so far. Wouldn't be surprised if somehow she makes her way through again. I gotta imagine that going 0-2 is just a bug in the Matrix or something along those lines, because your boy follows the Smite game Reddit, the Smite Pro Reddit, and they have been hailing her as the best god ever released. So there's no way that she isn't able to find that success at the SPL level. Guan Yu taken off the table by the Valkyries here, keeping in line with that generalized meta, as is Yanis, maybe targeted a little bit more so towards zeros there in that ban itself, but they're still leaving so much value on the table. Gotta imagine something's gonna get through here. Last time around, it came down to Tiamat and Yamoja. Which one are they going to let through? They let through Tiamat. Now, still, Athena, Yamoja, and Tiamat still available. Yamoja, first one off the board.
Wow, so now depending on where the Oni Warriors go, we could see the Valkyries go back to the Tiamat again. Sobek has been a very popular ban here at the SPL level. 66% banned against the Oni Warriors themselves, 35% in general across the SPL. So Sobek's still around. Tiamat still around, and the Valkyries can only pick one of the two, if that's what you're assuming are the top two picks here. Guan Yu taken off the table, which leaves Sun Wukong in a favorable spot, maybe later on in this draft, and it's the Sobek hover, Mifflin. Are we in a world where Tiamat's easy enough to deal with that Sobek ends up being the first overall pick?
Well, Sobek was banned out where that Loki ban came through on the side of Warriors last time around. The SPL has really been putting a lot of emphasis on this god. Just the raw initiation capacity, the CC immunity, the ultimate, as well as the peel potential. Sobek, an all-rounder, doesn't even really have a dedicated counter. Not really many bad matchups for that god. So it makes sense to me that they are willing to take him first off overall. Now, Valkyries and Oni Warriors are the only two teams having played Tiamat so far. So now they're the only two teams haven't lost with it as well. Oni Warriors undeterred though, gonna take it for themselves, and I can't fault them, man. On paper, Tiamat is such a phenomenal pick. Ranged artillery
right?
damage, ranged CC, the ability to split push the map, as well as the decision to build full damage and then all of a sudden become a tank by pressing 4, or 3 rather, that is her switch stance. It's all incredibly strong, but I love this from the Warriors, Dave. Take away Johnny's other pick. We've seen, alright, when Loki's not on the table anymore, where does he go? Ratatasker. Oni Warriors daring him to go even further into the god pool.
So we're assuming mid and jungle picked up for the Oni Warriors here. Could be some flex potential. We saw what? Solo Rat like once or twice last year, maybe. The full-on tank Ratatasker. So it remains to be seen, but safe bet is mid and jungle there for the Oni Warrior. Sun Wukong, not banned out here. Maybe the most prioritized solo lane pick still left on the table, and the Valkyries will gladly take that one. And then Jingwei was Emilito's maybe most popular pick in the Valkyries' first tilt up against the Solar Scarab. So you're looking at the Valkyries draft here, Mifflin. They got Sobek, Sun Wukong, Jingwei. If you're ignoring the fact that the Oni Warriors got Tiamat, which, I mean, to be fair, you can't do, you're just looking at the top 3 here for the Valkyries. You're feeling pretty confident if you're on that side.
Yeah, that is an incredibly strong core 3 already. You've got the safety in the Jingwei, the engage from the Sobek, and the backline bully potential from Sun Wukong, paired up with a ton of survivability from all 3 of those picks. Not really the greatest feeling on the planet having to try and target any of them out, but Oni Warriors take another very intelligent pick. Jingwei, Sun Wukong, and Sobek all going to struggle having to deal with these Ymir walls, especially considering how narrow the jungle paths are in Season 8, and now they can start to target even further into Johnny's god pool. This is his first real test. Set already banned out. I think Warriors probably going to toss another ban his way.
Yeah, it could be another jungle ban headed over towards Johnny. So we're going to have to start to dig real deep here. I'm praying we see Bakasura or Akali, something like that. He talked in the pregame interview about how he had to adapt, change some of his play styles. Interestingly enough, it wasn't even so much centered around Ao Kuang banned out, so that is kind of a Johnny-type god. To be fair to Johnny, he was saying it wasn't so much because he needed to change how he played, it was just he didn't think those gods were very good here at the moment. The Ao Kuang definitely fit in that wheelhouse, so I think a smart ban there from the Oni Warriors. So Johnny, fresh into the SPL, being target banned by a team consisting of SSG and PK last year. That's got to be a confidence booster for the Valkyries and the young jungler over there on the Valkyrie side of things. Ymir continues to be a top priority pick. Solo lane Hunter, though, banned out down the stretch for the Valkyries. So you kind of wait a little bit longer, Mifflin, to draft to your solo lane, and your consolation prize is a King Arthur here. I think the Oni Warriors, just the same as the Valkyries, are happy with their first 4.
You know, Oni Warriors already with their top 4 saying, look, this one's not going to go the same way. We're going to be the aggressors this time around. Tiamat, Ratatasker, Ymir, and King Arthur, incredibly aggressive picks. Not only do they have great backline disruption, but also chase down potential. Ymir can lock down an entire jungle path. Ratatasker going to hop up into Yggdrasil and chase down anyone who gets away. But how can I talk about anything else, Dave? Johnny finally making his selection here after getting so many bans and counter picks towards him, goes down to the Nemesis, and it fits his god pool incredibly well. Back at the SCC, he was playing the Bakasuras, the Kalis, the Erlang Shens, even the Arachnes, these auto-attack centric junglers. Nemesis, I think, is just a better version of everything I just said.
Fair enough. And she can build either way. Auto-attack, ability-based, depending on Whether you think you're going to be able to get to the back line and stick to him, or you need to burst damage immediately, Johnny's going to be able to read the course of the game in that direction. Raijin to round out the draft here for the Valkyries. Pretty low risk pick, you assume, here for Zeros. Thunder Crash in or out, CC immunity on the ultimate, some utility within the ultimate depending on what direction you want to change those Taiko drums. Not direction, what utility you want to apply to those Taiko drums. So I think pretty non-committal there from the Valkyries taking that Raijin last overall, and it's a great pick, first and foremost. Then the Ullr now to round out the draft here for the Oni Warriors, Mifflin. So Ymir Ullr lane, there's high kill pressure. You get a freeze and suddenly a volley of arrows and then another stun follow-up there from the duo lane. This Valkyries duo lane is going to have a lot of pressure mounting on them throughout the laning phase.
Luckily, though, they do have a fair bit of survivability themselves. Jingwei, hailed as the safest hunter in the game back in Season 7, hasn't changed just yet. Still has CC immunity in the ultimate, still can remove herself from the playfield, and with Sobek acting as a peel, that should be able to get her out of a lot of sticky situations throughout the early. But Oni Warriors, I really do want to talk about this Ull pickup, because I think in Season 8 he kind of brings a lot of the similar value that we see from Anher with the longer lanes. You can play much more aggressive. Ull, one of the most, if not the most aggressive hunter in the game, should be looking to jump in, throw those axes as you said, but not having CC immunity inside the ultimate makes him a little bit more so a niche pick. Luckily though, the Valkyries don't have that huge form of CC that needs to be immune by an ultimate. You're not often using something like Desert Fury to deal with a pluck from Sobek. Instead, that is generally going to be your beat, so Ull, not that much of a trade-off here in terms of safety.
All right, now it seems like the Valkyries, Mifflin, going into Game 2, a potential game or a set-winning game up against the Warriors. I can't believe this is the scenario that we're in right now, given all the talks about ping and playing from Europe, all that sort of stuff. Valhalla Valkyries, one game away from taking it over the Oni Warriors. Let's jump in.
Thank you, Dulcin and Mifflin, once again, as the Valkyries are on set point. And look at this duo lane the Warriors have drafted. Ullr Ymir, so aggressive. And this Ullr in particular, perhaps the only pick you can take with more direct kill pressure than an Anher in lane. I have to think Vote is directly calling out Immel and saying, I think I can just body you in lane.
Look, I love Ullr just because of exactly what you just highlighted. I'm curious to see what he does for the build. It already looks like he's maybe starting up that Transcendence. Very popular for Ullr.
Yep.
Kind of suffers with his mana, especially early on. So I don't expect to see Vote popping off too soon. But we didn't really get to see it until, what, level 9 through 12 last game, so give him a little bit. I expect that we're going to be returning to that duo lane. Plus, I mean, it's just so fun to be able to watch a long-range damage that you can connect with. Very, very consistent. I think Vote, again, had a stellar game last time. In fact, looking at it, I actually think Zapman tweeted between games just showcasing pretty much our thoughts exactly. We were talking to Hindu Man about it, which was just the Tiamat is really good. She just doesn't have that objective secure, which it really, really hurt the Warriors. This time around, they're still kind of lacking the objective secure, maybe a little bit more secure. Know that they have Niels with Ymir. That ult is pretty decent at being able to find it if you channel it properly. Same thing, Qvo could maybe create some space for them. But Vote has that long-range damage. There's a little more options, I would argue, for the Warriors to try and secure it. But Zeros is still going to give them a lot of trouble. Same thing there for you know, the zoning. Ducky and Raffer on Wukong and Sobek are going to give them a lot of issues to face. And so that's going to be the conversation. I think the farm at the beginning of the game matters a little bit, but these objectives and where they go is probably going to be the make or break.
I'm thinking so too, Gore. I mean, it was in Game 1, in a way. It's what kept the Valkyries close enough for eventually Johnny to be able to strip the game away from them with his excellent Loki play and finding what was very nearly a pentakill on that right side of the map. So curious to see if the Oni Warriors are going to, similarly to Game 1, have most of the pressure and then just struggle to execute on the objectives. Zimmelito and Raffer look to get aggressive on Vote, using the best Ullr skin, by the way, the tier 5. Not quite able, though, to hang with them, though. Vote makes it out of there with that leap and gets back towards safety. I think this one is going to come down to objective control, similarly to Game 1, and how well the Oni Warriors can keep Johnny in check. They just saw what his hyper carry potential is. Got to limit that this time.
Yeah, that's the big question mark around it, is specifically how well you can deal with Johnny and what he's going to be able to do. Nemesis, again, hyper carry, those two don't always go hand in hand for me. I'm really excited to watch what Johnny's going to be able to do. If this is going to be a pick that is more setup oriented, who kind of picks up that slack. Emilito fell pretty far behind. Zeros, I think, would be the one to step up to the plate, as this mid laner, especially as someone like Raijin, I think has those capabilities to get something done.
Does, but looks like there might be some dual lane focus already. Raffer is low and Cubo Fred is present. That wall does isolate Emilito, and Cubo Fred just is off the mark there. Probably wouldn't have got the stun anyway there with beads, but it looked like he wanted Raffer initially, walked past Emilito, then came back. I mean, again, could be something to do with the ping there, but seemed like a bit of an odd one there from Cubo.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how much of this, like, look, every jungler can play every assassin they need to at a high level, but there is a tier of where are they, and, like, how prepared were you to pick up this Ratatosker? How much of it is maybe trying to strip it away from Johnny? That's got to be a conversation to try and make Johnny feel uncomfortable, but if you don't get, I want to say, on par with what we saw out of Johnny, right? A couple of early game ganks over there to the duo lane helped him out pretty immensely. Cubo's not able to pick that one up, and even though they had the control, the freeze, the wall, doesn't quite go the way they wanted to. So I'm starting to be, not necessarily curious, I'm not doubting it, I just think Cubo, especially now that the ult is up, needs to get a little more concrete leads out of moments like that, and definitely find some kills to make sure it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, it was gonna be tough with the beads timing from Emilito no matter what, but definitely could have been more that happened as Dardez, the early target in mid. Dardez tanks, or rather Johnny tanks as much as he can. That sets up for Zeros to find first blood with the Tycho drums. And the woes continue for Tiamat here, don't they? So far, I mean, I'm not saying already that we've overvalued her, but 0-2 and struggling in mid without a little bit of backup from Cubo. There are questions.
Yeah, we were kind of, again, talking about this one between games where I'm wondering, you know, like, there's no doubt in my mind she's good. I mean, look at her kit.
Right?
She's got so much, it's impossible not to be good. Yet, she's got a 0% win rate right now. Granted, across 2 games, that doesn't necessarily mean so much, right? It's the win rate plus how many times she's been banned. She's obviously highly valued. But there's that question of, is she just really good in ranked? Is she really good in scrims? It's the split push that makes her very difficult to deal with. Her utility that she brings into the middle of a team fight that is very difficult to deal with. But we're in a meta right now where what we've been hovering around, at least what we've seen a little bit more of in the last couple of weeks, has been your Yanis's, mainly though your Scylla's, your Kukulkans. Again, anything that has a big burst amount of ult, or objective secure, I should say, off of their ult, tends to take the cake. Just 9 times out of 10, it's going to be very helpful for your team if they're able to secure it. I mean, we've even seen down in the SEC some ESET getting picked up for that Circle of Protection, and she's not necessarily a great mage. I love Spirit Ball, I love Wing Gust, I love things that she can do, but when you're comparing her to some of the others, she's not at the top of the tier list. This Tiamat, it's almost unfortunate to see her kind of suffering here, but maybe it's something that, at least in competitive play, as of right now, the Valkyries can say they've got a good hand on it. They lost with it, and they've made someone else lose with it. We'll have to see, I guess, in the rest of the week how some of these other teams handle her.
It's interesting because they have been very patient to pick bans with her, as Raffer cannot catch out Neil Ma. Good wall there. Raffer now slowed and stunned. Dardez's damage is there, but Raffer survives. Johnny moves back in, but no further follow-up, no further questions in that middle lane, and everyone makes it out of there safely. Vote looking to get aggressive on Emilito again. This is why you lock in the Uller for that exact reason. It does lock Emil down, but Neomaz in an awful position, goes into the shards of ice, and a stun comes through, I think, from Cubo Fred. That buys Neomaz some time, but Raffer and the boys too much and too unrelenting. They eventually get the kill, but they're going to trade their support back, as there is the kill coming courtesy of Nika, but Ducky getting involved alongside his other support, and Johnny takes care of Cubo Fred. It's jungle support for support on the other side in favor of the Valkyries, but Nika thinks he's got a shot, and he's right. It's a double for the solo laner from the Warriors, getting involved early and nearly takes down Zeros as well.
Yeah, jungle support for jungle support. Gonna ultimately be probably equal, although 1 kill go in the belt of Johnny maybe makes him feel a little bit better about that. In fact, the 4 kills spread across evenly for the Valkyries. Only one missing one is Emilito, and let's be honest, with the way that Vote played last time, and pretty much just the way these two hunters play, if anyone's getting kills in the duo lane, it's going to be Vote. And again, I think we'll get to that probably a few more levels. That Transcendence getting its stacks online as of right now. But I have to look at the aggression there. I think it's good lockdown initially, really great to lock Neil away, and then chase down Cuvo. Nika is able to return to. He gets that double kill, but he's still technically a level behind here, which means Ducky is the one that comes out on top, is able to get some of this farm. Ultimately, you're able to pull back a little bit, but I think the control that the Valkyries are showing right now, again, very akin to their first game against the Scarabs, definitely akin to that first game that we just saw here against the Warriors. And I'm starting to get a little worried. This Tiamat wasn't able to peel a lot or get a lot done in the middle of those team fights. I'm wondering what she's going to be able to bring to the table. I'm leaning a little heavier on Dardes here because I know he's such a phenomenal mid laner. I want to see a little more out of this Tiamat.
If they're going to pick it twice in a row up at the top of the draft, despite it having struggles in the first game, and despite the Valkyries clearly not valuing it at all, then I do think there's quite a bit of pressure onto Dardes to kind of prove that this pick can work and that it's worth it. As this Greater Scorpion belongs to the Valkyries, no one nearby to contest. They'll get this one for free. And that means the Fury already set to start spawning shortly, plus the enhanced buffs for the Valkyries don't feel too bad either. I was wondering, though, Gore, what type of build we see from Johnny as Greater Scorpion the 4th on the right side goes to the Warriors. Would it be an auto-attack focused build, or sometimes we even see an ability focused build from Nemesis around big damage on Slice and Dice? But this is Ninja Tabi in the Stone Cutting Sword. They are all in on the attack speed for Johnny. He's going to be looking to stick to targets.
Yeah, I feel like he's going to be chasing a very similar build to what we got to see out of Nemesis a lot last year, right? Going for that auto attack, more or less trying to use Slice and Dice as a slow mechanic more than damage mechanic, and find your ult to peel away protections and really just pick up kills whenever you can find them.
Looks like Raffer might be where the Warriors can find when he goes and lurking in the waters. Even turns around with Johnny nearby, but not much potential from the Divine very many kills in response, as Vote is on the hunt. He wants Emilito, and Emilito, I think, made the right call, picked a really safe guide and said, good luck catching up to me.
Vote's in a unique position. I feel like every other hunter, we've seen a very blanket build as of right now, and I won't be surprised if he maybe goes into that, but he hasn't been doing too much with it.
There was a Thunder Crash used aggressively by Zeros. Neomall comes back in because he has no option but to try and fight. And it just does not work. Johnny gets the kill. Looks like Cuvo Fred was able to invade the blue buff on Ducky's side of the map, so that's something for Cuvo in an otherwise quiet game. But this has been great work from the Valkyries now, chaining together with that game 1 to find pressure.
I'm excited to see Zeros. That ultimate, that's one of the things I love about Raijin, the control from his ult. Again, he kind of goes right down that middle lane. Like, his ult can do a lot of damage, but you have to hit 4 subsequent shots of it, versus also having a taunt and a push, so you can push and pull the ebb and flow of a Raijin ult that can control the middle of a fight. Those taiko drums are really interesting to watch depending on how people go. It's a taunt and fear. Those are the technical terms for it. It does less damage when he does that, but you don't have to do maximum damage on something like Raijin if Johnny or Emilito later on in the game are able to follow up on a lot of that. So I'm excited to see where Zeros is going to go with that. Of course, at the same time, you can also just smack people with 100% damage on all of your shots and have no problems either. But he doesn't necessarily hit that same mark as some of those other mages I was highlighting a little bit earlier, which maybe will open up the opportunity for the Warriors to be more secure around objectives. But Finch, I'm still having trouble figuring out how they're going to feel confident in their ability to do so, especially now that the lead is actually in favor of the Valkyries.
Raffer poked out there by Neo Ma. Fury was the thought for the Valkyries, but a great response from the Warriors, I think, has deterred that. They'll look for these oracles, but Johnny shows up in time to deny. They don't want to give the Warriors that free vision when the Valkyries have such a good chance to steal away the objective, but they're forced to retreat. Too many members rotate over from mid. It looks like the solo laner's getting involved here too, so the Valkyries pay their respects and back up. Good wall, and that forces Raffer into the lurking in the waters. He had no choice. If he got frozen there, was basically dead to rights. As Zero's forced to retreat from Dardes at Nika's pressure in mid.
It looks like they're going to be able to get a little something. Oh no, not quite for their troubles, although the Fury still available, and looks like the collapse from the Warriors is going to be in on that one. This is where Neil's ult comes in handy for me. I think that's going to be a big amount of burst to help close off a fight. It does take Ymir technically out of commission. They might not even need it here.
Wow. So it looks like they're just going to trade the Pyromancer because of that given up position that they had their core, they'll just give it up and instead come over towards Pyromancer. That hurts. The momentum the Valkyries are looking for to have to give up the gold for you like that with no contest.
That leads them to just, what, a couple hundred gold in their favor? Not a whole lot. Yeah, 500. That's hovering on their side. 1,400 experience or just under 1,500 there. So still a good amount of levels that are going to be in their favor. Most of that's over there in the solo lane, though. A little bit for the supports, Rafford leading. But right now it's Ducky actually dominating. And this was another conversation we were having. Look, we talked about the Valkyries a lot. And admittedly, after their performance, we've been looking at Emilito over the last couple of years saying, all right, what are you going to give us in the SPL? Because let's just face it, he hasn't had a clean, previous couple of seasons, last few seasons we got to see him play. So that Season 2, Season 3 nostalgia does take over, but we don't know what to expect out of Emilito. So far, pretty solid, not necessarily having any bad games. But Ducky, I mean, he's been consistently on teams that just haven't been able to find success, and the question was whether or not he was going to be able to break out and do something on his own. Everyone loves Doug. He's such a great guy to watch. His streams are really fun. He's so fun to talk to. But where does that translate into his SPL capabilities? And I admit, I was worried about that coming into this year as a solo laner, where he's going to perform. But right now, beating up someone like Nika is not easy to do. The fact that this Wukong has had a level lead, that he won the last game and controlled a lot of it, I have to give massive props to him because I think he is proving more and more that he is exactly the solo laner we wanted.
It was kind of his last shot, a lot of people thought, as Raffer deleted wall plus freeze equals thank you please from the OD Warriors. Nice and easy to take care of the enemy support there. But to continue this Ducky conversation, right, how long can we say for someone like Ducky that he's a really good solo laner just on some bad teams if eventually he gets on a team like this one and still can't perform? That's why we thought this was kind of his last shot. But I think he's looked good with them so far. Unlucky, though, the way that this early has started for Rafford. His second spill, getting caught out, just roaming a bit too much. And now the Warriors invading red and looking for a collapse onto Zeros, who's inside the Taiko drums for CC immunity. Does keep Cuvo Fred at bay with the fear, actually masterfully done by him. Almost gets the turnaround kill. Well done by Zeros in the middle lane.
Forces him up into the air just to make sure Cuvo Fred feels troublesome. And even though you're going to go more or less for ult there after having to use his, it keeps you in a good position, and it looks like the Valkyries might even want to keep going. Johnny's rotated in for the fight.
That seems to be the call. Raffer again, the target though, frozen underneath the tower, but that does not work. Wall keeps Johnny isolated. The retreat is on the mind for the Valkyries. Is Emilito in danger of having it happen yet again, but a good knockup coming through as I don't think Vote landed in quite the right spot. Means Emilito makes it out.
I'm more than anything excited to watch how that duo lane's going to go. You can watch the builds as they unfold here. Primarily the fact that you see Emilito going for the exact same one we've seen, the Devos, the Boots, your Executioner, into the Wind Demon. I always keep forgetting. I keep wanting to call it Wind Fire Wheels. That's Naja ult, not the item. Wind Demon into something like the Deathbringer. But Vote, we've been seeing a lot of these hunters run that build. Ullard is not someone that runs that build typically. I mean, last year we got to see him go pretty heavy in his abilities, and when I saw the start of a hi-rez, I was curious where he was going to go. Not a lot of attack speed, I guess, in these items that he's building up, but still a lot that you can have just in Ullard in general. So I want to see if he continues down this route. He's going for crit now. I want to know what this endgame Ullard is going to look like as Vote continues farming up.
Yeah, it's looking like Vote's building so that there's not a whole lot of second or third abilities needed. He wants that first rotation to get the job done as Emilito's stuck inside the purple buff kit. But Neil Ma and Cubo Fred trying to retreat because the backup is on the way. An excellent wall from Neil does deter the aggression for now, but Raffer wants the slow. He wants to keep Neil Ma in range, but I don't think his team is as interested. As Shard Device means there's no chance for a pluck, and now the only Warriors have a chance to flip the script. They get to get another good wall out from Neilma, but Raffer escapes both supports. Interested in trying to kill the other, but their team's not on board.
Definitely a fun one to watch as they move forward with it. Both still stacking those Thebes, so still in a position right now for these supports to really get taken down. Neil has been on point with these walls, though, creating so many opportunities.
But I think that the wall won't help him here. Ducky gets the damage, but that is set up by Johnny and Zeros working together to lock him down. No hope for Neil Ma to escape that. And a lot of the punishment this game has been on the support. Taz at 2 deaths for Raffer, 3 for Neil Ma. These teams are very willing to collapse on the support when they're there, and now Gore, time for an Oni Fury fight.
See if there gets to be any fight. The Warriors, unfortunately, just kind of watch from the sidelines. They're sitting on the first level of the bleachers saying, yeah, all right, let's go Valkyries, get that Fury, as they sit back. Again, not a lot of ability to contest there, but they didn't rotate fast enough. I thought they were making a beeline for the Pyromancer to try and get the standard, similar to what we saw last year, sometimes swapping the Fury for the Pyro. We've seen it a couple of times this year. Not picking it up this time around. Gives about a 2,000 gold lead over to the Valkyries now, starting to feel comfortable. Minion waves going to start supporting them here as well. Vote went straight into the Deathbringer. I wanted to talk about starter items earlier. It's something I completely skipped over, the fact that he doesn't have one, so I was curious if he was going to buy it. He just went straight into Deathbringer, which is a different take on that one. A lot of XP, definitely favoring the side of the Valkyries here. We'll have to see if this is going to be the difference maker for him. 50 physical power, that 25 crit strike, but you get increased damage on them by 30%. So even though he's not necessarily going to be critting a ton, that's typically why you see it paired first with something like a Wind Demon. What it used to be was like Rage. Pretty much any other crit item then plus Deathbringer. The only person who would ever pick it up first was Najah, but I feel like this could be interesting to see what Vote can do. Like you said, trying to get it done in one cycle. Hit the 1, hit the 3, hit the axe, hit a couple autos, and ideally they're dead after all of that. So far, we haven't gotten to see that come, forefront and be anywhere. Right there, he just chunks Emilito the exact way you'd want to.
Yeah, we got to see it there, didn't we? As Emilito forced to retreat. That's going to open things up here for the Warriors, but unluckily open up what? There is no Fury for them to go grab. Red buff secured smartly by the Valkyries. And the Oni Warriors can't even go get Pyromancer. That was just done by the Valkyries, who grabbed the Fury and that Pyromancer to add on to their lead. And it is starting to become a real lead for them. Nothing crazy, nothing the Warriors can't fight into realistically, but it is a slow and small lead building up nonetheless. Now the Valkyries can find one more good fight into an objective, into a tower, or 2 into a fire. They can end this game, but it looks like they want to just go ahead and grab this mid-tier 1 since it's on its last leg. No one here to contest, they'll go ahead and grab it.
This is where things get a little more awkward. Last game, they had Johnny with giant loop-arounds, really, really good engages on the back line of the Warriors. Nemesis technically can do that, but nowhere near as easily or as, I think, securely as a Loki can, right? Loki not only has the ult to close the gap, but the invisibility to ensure that that pathway is open for him. This is going to be a tank killer 100%.
Maw has been locked down on the wrong side of the map. Frenzy popped as Rapper loves to build that item, but someone has got to come back and help Zeros, who's in trouble. Emilito is there, but that's the beads taken away from the mid laner for the Valkyries. Meanwhile, Rapper stuck between 5, and Cuvo Fred will claim that very first kill of this engagement. They are not done by any means. Mid-tier 1 is next on the menu, and the Valkyries should not do a whole lot more defending than they're currently doing. Emilito will take some shots, sure, but he cannot afford to give up relics and his life here, and he gives up both, trying to defend a tier 1, but they do keep them at bay. The Valkyries push the Warriors off of a tier 1 20.5 minutes in.
And they were able to do that. That was a 3v5. Johnny was not part of that fight. He was hanging out in the jungle pretty much the entire time. And so that is good plays. I think Zeros a lot of damage. Emilito, look, this build is built for one thing, and he's still able to do it. It is building up the damage that Wind Demon now being finished, eventually you can assume the Deathbringer coming online, but even though he has to sack both his ult and both relics, and just to stay alive in the maybe scenario where he didn't need to be aggressive, it's still a lot of damage they aren't able to account for on the side of the Warriors.
Well, the Fire Giant incredibly low. Where's the confirmation? The Valkyries grab the big-time objective, and they are on the run. The Warriors left with nothing to do, Gore, as the Fire Giant on all 5 members' persistent gust is what confirms it. And I can't believe if that's the plan right after the defense to come over to Fire. It makes me even more curious by the weird commit from Emil on the tier 1, but it all works out. No one even gets close enough to touch him.
That doesn't feel as much of a plan as a... Guys, they backed up. I think we can do Fire. Like, there's definitely a little bit of impulse in that decision, because I'm sweating over here just thinking about it. You're going in. There's still 5 members on the other team. You didn't just win a big fight. You kind of forced them back, but you didn't see a lot of the Warriors retreating. I see some of the ward coverage there on the Valkyries, so they knew they had enough time, but Finch, I mean, that was still too close for comfort for me, but it comes down to the same conversation we were having, and that is that, where is your objective secure? I think I had this conversation. I think I might have said it maybe on an SCC cast, but this is where, you know, the old hog would come in handy, right? When you used to execute Gold Fury or Fire Giant when they were 25% HP, that's what it was like. The utility was because, hey man, we don't have to rely on our mage to be the one to be able to do that, but if in this case, Dardes, isn't able to get anything done specifically because of objective secure, and Neil, Cuvo, maybe Vote, if you want to throw his hat in the ring, aren't really able to jump in there and be a big disrupting factor. I like the fact that the Valkyries are taking control of that situation, that their objective control, even though it's not fantastic with this kind of composition, is still slightly better than what the Warriors have. And now with 5 members having Fire Giant, still stressed out about that team fight because it didn't look like it was going to be as clean as it ended up being for them. They can start knocking down these towers. They don't have enough of a lead. They didn't win enough of a fight to cleanly get, I want to say, all of the towers. These next 2 or 3 tier 2s are going to be very difficult for them to fall down, but they can at least group up and force the Warriors to take a fight that they're not going to be happy with.
They've got all the onus, the Valkyries that is, to force those fights you mentioned. Real quick, it's Aaron died an Executioner finish for Johnny. He will be chunking. Wind Demon already there for Emilito. Spectral to deal with the crit from Vote. Karen's coin for the pan, and Anquile finish for Ducky. Those are big power spikes as the Valkyries move into this tier 2 tower in left. And it looks like the Oni Warriors' plan is to put up a hard defense here while it's still only a 4,000 gold deficit plus the Fire Giant. Gore, how do you feel about it? Do you want them defending here, or should they just wait to defend on Phoenix?
Honestly, I think they can defend here. The lead is a little bit of a nuisance, but Johnny hasn't been in these fights. Look, last game we were talking about Johnny non-stop. This game, he has not been available for his team. I want to see something out of him, and he's going for another loop.
Well, they've got the tier 2 tower low. They pluck in Neil Ma as well, but Charge of Ice buys him some time. Johnny and Nika battle for a moment as they've got Neil Ma locked down. The first kill of this engagement goes to the Valkyries, but they lost Frenzy and B to Emilito and a couple of ults as well. Tycho Drum, Somersault Cloud, and Lurking in the Waters all expended. But they still like their chances here, Gore, on a Phoenix Siege.
They don't have much time left on this Fire Giant, though. That's really what they're playing against. The timer is before it runs out. They've got a minion wave. Should get cleared pretty quickly, thanks to the fact that Vote and Dardes are over here. But they have to be able to get forward to deal with them. They're not going to be able to zone out.
Johnny
just goes straight to the back line.
And deletes Vote instantly. Perfectly played. Left side Phoenix removed. And that is the dual lane of Oni Warriors out of the question for this left side defense. So that is just about it for Fire Giant as well, as that's about to fall 15 seconds away from now. They might still have time to come grab this tier 2 in mid, but no chance I'd complain if they take a full back here, Gore, and just go for the retreat. They did so much. They've increased the gold lead up to 7,000 and can just reset for another Fire Giant fight. Is Emilito, of all people, styling in mid? I don't know if that's 100% proportionate with how the set's gone, but feel free, my man.
I mean, hey, they're able to find what they're, well, at least trying to get done here. 1-0-5 there for Zero, and they pick up a Pyromancer. Good cleanup from the Valkyries. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, the last 5 minutes, this has been a wild roller coaster. Nothing that I thought was going to happen kind of followed that trajectory. Like, once you get Fire Giant, there's usually that given path. They're able to get the Phoenix, which I'll admit is a little surprising to me. I thought the Warriors would be able to get a little bit more done, but you can't really account for Johnny just being an absolute madman, dashing in on the crit Uller in the background. But that also, again, comes back to this build from Vote. It's kind of this weird hybrid, like a little bit of crit and then a little bit of abilities and some mana in there. Like, he doesn't necessarily have one prominent stat standing out. And so it's maybe making it a little more difficult for him to feel as solid about it, even though he was absolutely decimating Emilito earlier. When Johnny is able to go in there with a shield that reflects that damage back, it makes it a little easier to deal with a hunter like this. So I think working out for him, Uller maybe not the best pick.
A good wall means Raffer takes a bunch of damage, but he just turned the tides and uses that Lurking in the Waters to engage. That's one of Raffer's biggest strengths. When you think that you've isolated him and have a good chance to pick him, he just says, okay, I'll turn this into a chance to engage for my team. It's Fire Giant, started now by the Valkyries, but they have unleashed it. Raffer gets the pluck, and that's Neo Ma brought in. But Cubo Fred is up in the air waiting for a target, and he does indeed come down. Has found little so far, but forces Zeros to disengage. But meanwhile, Johnny again is in the back line, finding Neo Ma. But Emilito has been lost, but Zeros respond to the damage, and that gets rid of Q Vote for Red. That makes it 2 for 1, but Vote comes in to make it 2 for 2. Ducky finds Dardes, but Vote gets another kill on the Zeros. Someone has to deal with the Uller, who has all this late game damage.
You ever say something and know that Vote's about to pop off? Well, the minute I let the words leave my lips that I'm not sure about this Uller, of course you know he's about to do something, right? Like, and I had that clairvoyance as it came through, but is it going to be enough? I mean, look, Fire Minion's already taken it down, only about 3/4 health on that Titan. Johnny gets a really good amount of aggression. That almost is a winning fight. I was thinking of a fun joke about Zeros kind of being a sacrificial lamb. We got to see it a little bit in Season 6 prior to him leaving that team. We got to see it in Season 7 while he played for Belt Slap. Sometimes Zeros just got hung out to dry while the rest of the team got to run away with their victory. But this time around, there was a lot of peel for him. I'm sure that was maybe a new experience, depending on if you ask him or not. But it looked really solid for them at the very initial engagement on that. But the double down from the Warriors to really power siphon in on that Raijin creates more space for them than I think they would have realized, and they target him for that reason. They lose a little bit in the process, but if you're able to keep Vote alive in these fights, that's going to be enough return damage, at least as of right now, to keep the game afloat. 3 kills is good, but they have to be able to do it a little cleaner next time if they want to be able to win. They still have 4 towers to tear down, plus the 3 Phoenixes to break through. So the Warriors need a Fire Giant. They need it badly to make this game really start sitting in their favor.
Raffer frozen on the Fire Giant ring. That's going to hurt, but so is
doing it.
Neomar, thanks to Ducky. Meanwhile, the Fire Giant goes to the Valkyries, and they've got a chance to win the fight as well as Tycho Drums wreaks havoc. They've got Neomar low. Cudgel just barely was enough, but the ticks do it on the back thanks to the Bluestone, setting up for Ducky to find Neomar. Meanwhile, Nika does grab Johnny, and that means a critical kill goes the way of the Warriors, and they still look to engage as Nika pushes in. Raffer seemed to have gotten the pluck, but maybe Nika knock up immune. Either way, no pull. Left side Phoenix goes down thanks to Fire Minions, and the Valkyries still do seem to come out ahead, even though they lose their jungle.
Just being able to get that Fire Giant. Look, Finch, there's been twice now, 2 Fire Giants, 2 times I thought for sure it was going to be dropped for a fight. But the Valkyries have just done the Fire Giant instead of worrying about it. And it's risky. I mean, it is one of those moments, 9 times out of 10, I feel like we see those stolen away, but they have been just secure enough in their capabilities that they've been able to then secure a Fire Giant. If you do it twice, it's not a risk at that point. It's a calculation, right? At least I'm going to give them that credit as we move forward with it. They unfortunately lose Johnny, but I think when it comes to the Fire Giant, probably best to keep it on someone like Imolito, try to tear down some of those last few towers. Plus, let's face it, him and Zeros really need the sustain right now. I'd even throw Raffer into that boat as well. Like, people who are getting burned down, getting focused down, they're going to be able to survive a little bit better during these, well, team fights and maybe these next few sieges as they can get aggressive. But the downside is because these Fire Giants haven't been so heavy-handed the way we're typically used to seeing them, you don't have a lot of pressure on the back of it. The Valkyries are getting it. They have a massive gold lead, but they're kind of struggling to get to any of these towers. They luckily had their Fire Minions knock down that left-hand Phoenix during the FG fight, but they're going to be able to get a tower, maybe even get a Phoenix. It's just taking them a long time to get to either.
Valkyries are in position to begin their onslaught. They'll threaten right side after already opening left side up to those minions. Tier 2 should be relatively easy for them to take. 3 members in right, 2 in mid. Well, it looks like the Valkyries are considering a back. They did channel 1 for Zeros, who retreats. That'll leave them with maybe about 1:20 by the time he regroups with the squad to try and make this absolute final siege onto the mid Phoenix and the right Phoenix start up. So the Warriors send Tiamat minions over to left to defend, and the Valkyries have got to be careful. Johnny steps up, and the Warriors were there waiting, but a mid-Phoenix siege does seem to be the play.
A Malice picked up here by Vote. Not something we're used to seeing, and not something I expect we're going to see on pretty much anyone other than Uller. When you get that crit, you get some cooldown taken away. I think it's like 3 seconds, except on your ult. Doesn't really matter that much for Uller. Yeah, subtract 3 seconds from all of your abilities. This works so well with the build he's going, and with the meta right now, I'm really excited to see if he's able to do something, but he's already on the back foot, having to play far away. Uller can hit you pretty hard from far away. But is he going to be able to utilize this crit that he's built into here on the defenses, try to burn someone down? At this point, I mean, his main target's probably going to be Johnny, because Johnny's going to be the one who's in his face.
Let's see. It's Ducky in mid. The other 4 members of the Valkyries in right. A 4-1 split to try and split up the defense of the Warriors. Meanwhile, minions continue to accumulate in left, threatening to start pushing through. Might even take the left Phoenix on their own if the Warriors don't show up. But so far, the defense of the Warriors has been good, but Rapper moves in, walled again by Neil Maul, though, to deny the actual damage onto the Phoenix. That is what stalled out the Valkyries so well, but Rapper hit the go button, popped the frenzy, and that means the Valkyries want to move in, but a big freeze from Neil Maul slows them down, get beads out of 2. But the Titans still taking damage from the minions over in left. Still the right side Phoenix looking healthy, and still Ducky battling with Nika inside. They have not made their way all the way in yet, have the Valkyries. This has been a slow push, but now they have a chance to make it to Dardes. The pluck has landed, and Dardes plucked all the way back in, but Emilito barely finds the damage, gets some help from his buddy Zeros. They end up losing him in trade anyways, a 2-for-1 in favor of the Valkyries.
They're still in a good position. Not only that 2-for-1, but like you said, the fire minions. That left Phoenix about to respawn, but it looks like it go down. Zeros gets another kill. They're going to be able to at least knock this Phoenix down. With Johnny and Zeros, they might be able to find the end right here.
On how this fight goes, but right side Phoenix is done and dusted. Minions pushing in left as well, and a chance of the Valkyries, if they don't yield, if they don't relent, to cause some problems here, to maybe even close this game out. They will indeed move up and threaten the mid Phoenix, and they'll barely be able to keep the left side Phoenix alive, but can Nika do it alone? As Vote has the damage to delete Johnny as he pushes up. That could be a critical kill to keep this game alive. The mid Phoenix should end up falling, though, and it will, alongside the left side Phoenix. The bait's completely exposed, but the Valkyries too low to push in now. The Warriors do just enough to stay alive.
Now, if this was a world-class event or just a LAN of any sort, I'd start talking about Neil's passive activating once 3 Phoenixes are down. This is where things get strong for a team he's on, right? But this is difficult to fight back from no matter what. I have to give the credit because that is exactly what teams that Neil and last year Cuvo has been on to do. But this one's very difficult. They're walking into the Fire Giant pit. Respawn's still coming through. Johnny's not here for another 20 seconds. Advantage all in favor of the Valkyries. I mean, they still, again, 4 towers standing, 13,000 gold, although we're starting to get to the point where maybe that doesn't matter as much. But it's going to be the Warriors on the FG right now.
They thought they had a chance while the Valkyries were backing and waiting on Johnny, so they step up. They've got Ducky low. He can't even make it up to the Somersault Cloud. It's a big kill for Cubo Fred to slow down the momentum of the Valkyries. He's up in the air as well, considering a second landing to zone while the Fire Giant is collected by the Warriors. But the Warriors are starting to retreat. Nika's too low. Neil Maw plucked back in, and they no longer like their chances, so Dardes steps forward, unleashes the damage, but it's Neil Maw who continues to take too much on the Valkyries, who defend the Fire Giant and push the Warriors out. In fact, it's a chance for Johnny to grab Cubo Fred. Barely can't do it.
Yeah, a great stun from Cubo just to get some peel there. Still 30 seconds without Ducky, by the way. A full minute. That was his first death of the game. He was out for 63 seconds at the beginning. It's going to be a little while before he gets to join into this. And depending on the pace they're setting with no teleport, there's a chance he might not even be able to show up here. I can't imagine, even with Fire Giant, trying to take a 4v5 under the Titan. So it looks like the back off. Primal Fury's over there on left, although that conversation seems to have been left by the wayside. Maybe this is a chance to walk up and clear buffs and things like that while you wait for your team to respawn and regroup. But if you're the Warriors, you have no chance to be really proactive. You can't go out even into your own jungle and feel too confident about it because you're busy clearing right side fire minions, mid fire minions, left side fire minions. The Titan, while it might be technically recharged in its health, it's going to be really squishy at this point with all the objectives that have been taken. So very easy for the Valkyries, especially with a minion wave, to burn things down. They're starting to group up, Finch. Ducky joining them in mid. Emilito's hanging out over there in the Primal Fury, but making his way this way. This fight might be the end.
Zero's forced to use his beads instantly in that engagement, but Vote in trouble on the left. Ducky and Emilito are there, and Emilito gets some late-game revenge. His first kill of the game, and he'll take it proudly as Zeros goes down in trade. ADC for Mage. Neil Maw continuing to run. Meanwhile, Johnny says, come back here, Dardes, as Emilito gets himself a double to increase the total to 2 in this game. The Titan is low, but the Valkyries have to wait till the rest of the squad is here before they can engage, but that pluck should help. Nika used beads in midair, and is certainly vulnerable as the stun lands from Ducky. Cudgel there as well, and Emilito gets his third. Nika in danger. Ducky finds the final one, and this game should be over. It's a double for Emilito. He ends the game with 4, and the Valkyries take themselves a 2-0.
I mean, something, Zero sacrificial lamb, right? Like, that just follows the equation. Zero's even recognized it. There's a certain point he's low, uses the relics, is alive as much as you can be when 2 people are diving you, but the minute Cuvo lands on him, he beelines it back towards his base. The tier 1 mid tower is still standing there. That's not going to stop anybody at this point. But it is going to pull them really far away from the base. They have to spend that time backing or running back. Either way, they're out of position, and it lets Johnny and the rest of the Valkyries find a great way to start sieging that base. By the time they join the fight, that Titan's already starting to take damage, and things are falling apart.
A great win there for the Valkyries. And we still had that Tiamat discussion. Didn't she do like 32,000 player damage? Hard to say she's bad if those are her numbers there at the end. We'll let the desk sort all of that out, though. A quick break, and we'll be right back.
Well, a lot of us predicted a 2-0, but not a Valkyries 2-0. Hats off to the Valkyries for taking it to the Oni Warriors here today. If you're in the market for a new jersey, well, shop.smiteproleague.com is the place you want to go. Shout out to Insight Apparel, our jersey, clothing, everything outerwear sponsor for this year in the SPL. Shop.smiteproleague.com, Insight Apparel Company. Once again, thanks to them for sponsoring us here at the SPL. The Valkyries have a pretty sweet jersey as well, so maybe some newcomer fans after that one want to jump on over there. And we have to give a round of applause here, Miff, when you and I can join forces. Give chat the claps.
Chat?
Yeah, we're cheering chat on. Chat, you guys all voted for the Valkyries to win this set. Every single caster voted for the Warriors to win this set. But chat said the Valkyries, so in humble defeat, us casters will give you a round of applause. How'd they get there, though, Mifflin? A couple guys had to stand out today. The rest of the team played their roles, but I think Johnny and Ducky had a day here, and it helped the Valkyries get over the finish line.
Game 1, wholeheartedly Johnny. Gotta agree with you there. It was the Johnny show. I don't think anyone's gonna argue that point. But Game 2, I felt like Johnny still performs at a very high level. But I think you highlighted it correctly, Dave. Ducky really steps up for his team there, acting as a backline disruption factor. And instead of just disrupting, I feel like Mans went above and beyond the call of action at times. Just killed the backline on his own, setting up for his team. Look, I was worried about the Valkyries, how well they were able to transition, how well they were going to play on elevated ping, how well they would act as this new squad. I think this should alleviate a lot of the concerns, not only for me, and maybe chat never had them, considering how they voted, but the Valkyries, man, they're looking really good.
Hey, here's the good news for me is I'm the only one who voted for the Kings against the Leviathans later on this weekend. Chat included voted for the Leviathans for our last game of the weekend, so there's a chance for some retribution for me, and for me alone, and that's truly all that matters here. But Johnny kept his pace, Mifflin, and I'm glad we're giving him some more shout-outs. Continued on throughout this set because the flexible picks definitely showing here. You take away the Loki, let's see what you can get done on the Nemesis. Nemesis looked great, 3.5 KDA, 15,000 damage for the jungler. And this is an important one, right? You know, earlier on today I talked about how momentum is such a buzzword this early on in the phase, and it really is. It's just something we say so often because you need to get the ball rolling early on. But it's, you know, it's a fair, I think, buzzword, right? I mean, it's all about getting things started for your team. The longer it takes, the harder it's going to be to bounce back from a tough spot in the standings. So Valkyries getting their first win over the Oni Warriors and not the Scarabs, I think, big surprise here for all of us. But awesome to see this team start to succeed, and high hopes in their ability to grow here into the future.
And they're only going to continue getting better. They're only going to get more repetitions in, be it through scrims or the SPL itself. Eventually, they will cross the pond as well and not have to deal with that elevated ping. I think right here, up against the Warriors, look, put the rest of the SPL on blast, really. You got to keep your eyes on these Valkyries. I think they really are going to be a force to be reckoned with given a couple more weeks. And already, I mean, I'm still sleeping on them, Dave. I'm still sleeping on them. They're a force to be reckoned with now.
I know. Let's see what the standings look like after this one. The Oni Warriors 0-2. What? Here's all of us casters at the beginning saying the Oni Warriors are going to be a top 3 team. Still might be. Still have the roster for a top 3 team. Just have not got any of those pieces working together on a consistent enough basis right now. The Valhalla Valkyries tie themselves for 3rd place. Leviathan's a chance to either jump up into 1st or tie themselves for 2nd place. So these standings will change around after our next matchup here today. But Miff, what's the diagnosis here? Look, the Warriors, they got a matchup, as you can see here, against the Solar Scarabs tomorrow. Way too early to call anything a must-win, and the Scarabs are looking like a pretty good team. It could be a surprising 0-3 start for this Oni Warriors team if they don't show up tomorrow.
It really could be, man, and it's so hard to make these on-a-dime adjustments off of a one-day heads-up, right? I mean, they had a doubleheader here. You could say potentially maybe they prepped a little bit more so for the Scarabs, but I don't think you can really make that prediction accurately. If anything, the Oni Warriors are going to have to go back to basics, try and play their best game, ignore that this Valkyrie set happened at all, and just hope that they are going to be the best team on the day of.
Valkyries back in action against the Bolts tomorrow, so that's a fun one here. You gotta always feel good, right, when a lovable team like the Valkyries also starts to get their feet under them, start to work forward, start to hit that potential that we figured they had. Maybe no one on this roster more lovable than Ducky, so it's only apt that we have our John Finch standing by with Ducky for the post-game interview.
I'm right there with you, Dave. Don't you think Ducky deserves a dub here, man? Congrats on this first win. Talk to me a bit about what it means to be on this roster and to be competing this well in brutal conditions, if I'm being honest. Just talk to me about how you're feeling, man.
I mean, winning's nice. I don't know how to respond to that question. I don't know. Winning's great, but it does suck that we're all in the ping. Not only us. I know a few of the Oni boys are on high ping as well. But it's nice to get a win out the bag, especially after the Scarab games.
Well, how does this new roster feel from your perspective? I mean, you've got Johnny and Zeros and the whole squad really playing well and seem to be in sync. Talk to me about how it feels to be a part of it.
I don't know, it's a lot of fun. Everyone on the team is really chill. Johnny is a little cannon. You see that blink he did on the Ymir? I didn't see that in game, so seeing him back on the replay was sick. But I don't know, it's a lot of fun teaming with the guys, so I hope we keep doing well.
Well, I'm also really interested in how you guys are valuing Tiamat. A lot of people think that she's must pick, must ban, but you guys let her through twice. Maybe a little easier after you saw game one, but how do you all feel about it right now?
Oh, that character is still broken, but on the 150, I don't know if we want to pick it. But maybe I'm lying, maybe I'm not. You know, you never know. Maybe leave it open. But let's see what happens.
Well, how about your matchup over there up against Nika today? Because you looked pretty good, even when you weren't having a whole bunch of action on that side of the map. How are you feeling personally about your play right now? And then talk to me about your matchup with Nika today as well.
I felt so bad for Nika. I was AFK that entire game until the 18-minute mark. I think he got every totem game 1. Game 2, I think I got 1. But yeah, I was just farming and then running over to the other side of the map to clean up. So he couldn't really do much.
Weren't going to bother dealing with him there in that one. It's nice to hear it from you directly, Ducky. Congrats on the win. Look forward to hopefully seeing you get some more coming up here in the future. So thanks, man. And we here on the broadcast are going to be going to a quick little break. Then we'll be right back to start Upset 2.